Hello again. I'm out of detention. I think I'm allowed to move on with life now. So good to see you on this Wednesday, 19th of March. As as season 2 tiptoes into view, RTD gets another award for his work in the field of I wasn't sure myself. Gaydio, yes, is that a thing? Uh, had our Doctor Who showrunner given an Icon Award. Icon Awards. Now, I've heard of, you can get something for lifetime achievement. Icon Award. Does that mean you are recognizable? Or does that mean you're just old? The Bigenerates, whovians across the generational divide, will discuss the latest rants and wars from our showrunner and Doctor Who's self-appointed guru and ponder whether all this political hysteria and platforming is endangering the Doctor Who brand or risking it becoming an absolute political platform itself, weaponized by RTD himself while he is accusing others of weaponizing their platforms. Oh, the irony. The Radio Times celebrates Nuwho at 20. Do you? What is there to celebrate? Well, we'll take a look. The Bigenerates will have a look at that and give their thoughts on it. Last night, as I said, I was incarcerated. I was put into detention by my own followers. You tell me another channel that does that. Anyway, I got out of it late. It was a long detention for daring to challenge followers' views on the greatest show or mess in the galaxy. And I know it's Marmite. It's one of those. But it was good fun. It was good fun. And we'll do it again because I think it gives me a chance to do a deep dive and a reflection because I'm doing a few shows, I think you've noticed. So join us for that. It was done in jest and there's some great comments. And it's a good excuse to look at some of the comments after our YouTube stream. So thanks for joining us. And if you didn't see it, you'll have a laugh. Go and watch that. So we've got a fun show ahead. So let's get into warp speed now and get the panelists materializing. So he's here. He's ready. Let's find him. Hiya, James.
Hey, hello. How are we doing?
Very good. I just thought I'd warm you up with, I thought you'd like that. There you go.
It's the wrong Davros and it's gone wrong.
Yeah, well, I have to say we have to echo what we can, don't we? I mean, that's from Wallace and Gromit, who are slightly more successful.
Yeah.
So we might as well take what we can. So we'll get we're the Bigenerates, but we've been lucky these last few weeks to get Lee on. So here comes Lee. Problem being, good to see you. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you for having me back.
It's all right. Do you like that version of Davros? I mean, he has got legs.
Yes. He's got the wrong wheels.
Honestly, I think it's disgusting to disable people to do this Lourdes resurrection.
Just magic away your disability and make you walk again. Isn't that amazing? Isn't it? Without any explanation or reason, it's great. Well done.
Yeah,
Jesus the Messiah is RTD.
Yeah, there's something about it that's just a little bit. So, as I try and show my thumbnails, there's a lot of politics and stuff today, but my overriding thing is Doctor Who. And I will keep referencing, yes, he makes political points, does RTD. He's always been on the left, but I will really try and... They love that word intersectionality, don't they? So I'm going to see where it hits the Doctor Who intersection and obviously the Radio Times celebration too. But I have to say, by the way, Anthony Parkinson in the thread was talking about, it's a good job Shooty Gatwa wasn't on the cover. Well, they've got 6 covers.
Of course they have.
So you take your pick. So
where's the rest then?
Yeah, I know.
Oh, it's the only those lot, isn't it? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I got the Tennant one. I had a choice of a couple in the shop.
Where's Joe Martin?
Where's the War Doctor? Where's the Schalke Doctor? If they're going to go that far, it goes on and on and on. But it's Nuwho, isn't it? Because they invented Nuwho. It's all about them. So, I mean, Doctor Who's about 62 years old. That's the age of it. RTD's done this clever little trick of actually saying, "Oh no, it's 20 years old. It's season 1, it's season 2." No, it's not. It's season blooming 48 or one. It's crazy. I don't like this rebranding because suddenly it's their ownership. Now, on this one, when we get into the debate, which is taking place in a second, this is what gets me is he tells off Elon Musk for facts, getting your facts right. And we can't have platforms that are, in charge of the facts and all the rest of it. And I will just say, Wild Blue Yonder, Isaac Newton, there's one fact that RTD himself penned and happily completely changed the truth.
Well, I mean, it's not unusual. I mean, Moffat did this before, with that 12th Doctor story where they're in Victorian London and, it's very diverse, let's put it that way. And then in an interview, he said, "Oh, well, we have to sort of tell a lie." Well, isn't that interesting? When you talk about truth and all this kind of, it seems very subjective. We live in this post-truth age, don't we now? Which is the irony. And who created that? It's this postmodern relativism, isn't it, that we are seeing? And if nothing matters, then what does matter? It's such a convenience and I don't seem to think about the consequences of these things either. You're by a wave of your hand or a stroke of your pen or a tap of your finger, you've deleted the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade. You've denied the British Empire taking over India. You've kind of just created this line, wrapped yourself in it like it's a cozy blanket, but really what you're doing is you're revising history and presenting a lie.
Yeah, but you cannot RTD say you're against people owning the facts when you actually completely change the facts just to have your own comfortable version.
I blame it's my truth. I blame that insidious statement, that people make. It's my truth, not the truth. And I think that again, it boils down to that sort of relativism, and it's so ridiculous, and it's such a get out. Like, you can make anything mean anything. It's like statistics, you can just move the numbers around and pop, there you go, I've got the answer I was looking for. And that's exactly what they're doing here.
Yeah. So James, I'll move us straight to the RTD speech. I mean, he hasn't been doing much about Doctor Who lately, but he has, taken his award, and of course he had some important things to say. So here's the two headlines. First of all, RTD's powerful speech fighting against evil at an LGBTQ plus award ceremony. Not much fighting. We were talking just before we came on about powerful verbs. Fighting evil, what, by standing up and I don't know. Russell Davies, gay society is in the greatest danger I've ever seen after the Trump win. Now, I've got quotes from James Dreyfus and everything today, so don't you worry, we'll look into that. But James, I'm sure this appeared on your headlines or radar in the last few days. What's the feedback you're hearing?
Well, he's gone off on one, and it's just like, what was his name? Ricky Gervais said a few years ago, like, why are these people, why do they think they have the right to tell us what to do and how to think? That's the thing, how to think. And like, it goes back to what Problem Bean was saying just now. It's like their truth is not the truth, and they're just peddling opinions as though they were facts and not even making any sense, to be perfectly honest. I mean, how is Trump a danger to gay people? I don't understand.
And we'll look into it. Obviously, he's only referring to one element of the LGBTQ thing, and that's another thing. By the way, everybody who's just tuning in who doesn't want to have a lecture on LGBTQ again, because it gets a backlash if people get sick of hearing about it. I grant that.
So do we.
Yeah, I will keep pulling it into the Doctor Who realm. Don't you worry, everybody. But obviously, we need to set up the context a bit first. When he says gay society is in the greatest danger I've ever seen, when he says that gay society thing, all I know is he goes to Canal Street and he pops into Manchester. Now, I don't claim to know gay society, if there is one. I don't claim to be a representative. I think it's dangerous, people who say they're representatives, by the way. I speak for myself. And I'm sorry, but it's in the greatest danger. I think there are dangers out there, but I think it's more to do with how our culture is changing, and therefore certain religions don't like my existence. That's where I see the danger for me, but it wasn't Trump. I was looking quite close to home, actually.
Well, yeah, I would say as well, words like community and society. Pardon me if I'm wrong, but back in the 90s, weren't we looking to become just accepted by society, wider society, to integrate, just to be normalized, and that's it and move on? The greatest danger to so-called gay society is the LGBTQ activism, which is creating such a wedge. And even his language there, calling it a gay society, it's othering. It's a them and us situation. You're the one seeding these ideas.
Yeah. Now, what I'll do is to try and keep... I find it very hard. The word society is a noun, and community, as you've just said, Lee.
What's society? Says Russell T.
Yeah, but I find it funny. But while we're doing identity politics, thanks, California. While we're doing all this identity politics, which is all about me, and everybody, even though we're all men or women, we're all different. And you think, well, okay, here we go again with language politics. But this, and then the next minute is we're all a community. So one minute we're all different identities, and now we're a big blob. And I have to say, it's a very big blob. Did you notice a few years ago they got rid of the acronym BAME? They said to have Black, Asian, Middle Eastern was too broad a spectrum to cover people.
And the BBC still using it, though? I thought they were.
Well, I just found it fascinating that a lot of people said it was just too wide. It covered too many different people to actually say anything. And I'm
heaven forbid that everybody gets on with each other and we actually all correct this piece.
Now, Brian here, who's one of our panelists and is in Canada, and everywhere's got different vibes. I know when I was in Canada, I noticed. Now, he says the gay community in America is very afraid right now, more than ever. Brian, help me out here. Are you saying the gay community, or are you saying the trans community? Because I've seen a lot of stuff where I can see some people who consider themselves trans are more concerned about what's going on. I'm trying to work out why gay people would be, because I am mad on my politics. I haven't heard anything on that score.
Well, wasn't there a record number of votes across all sort of different demographics that voted for Trump? In gay people, more gay people voted for Trump this time around than even last time. So
yes,
I mean, again, we fall into this danger of just amalgamating everyone under one banner, and that's the rainbow, the program of the rainbow pride flag, with the progressive one, and it's so undemocratic, actually, because it's not anything I voted for. It certainly isn't something I agree with or identify with. I certainly don't. And I think it's incredibly manipulative to assert that all this group feels in one particular way. No, every group is a fiction. It's the individual that counts. It's only the individual that exists. Groups are a fiction. Societies, communities are a construct.
And people are borrowing. I mean, me and you are gay, but nobody speaks for us. But we'll be bundled into that LGBTQ thing to give them numerical power. But then in the same circle of Doctor Who fandom, we're probably told to shut up. It's fascinating as a concept. Now, a few people are trying to help me out here. So remember, I'm one slide away from going into RTD's speech. So we're going to start in a moment. But Paul Richards says, I'm not sure, but I did see Trump supporters say gay marriage should be abolished. Now, this is the difference, isn't it? I'm granted, out of the 70 odd million who voted for Trump, there will be people. There's religious people. As I said, there's religious people in this country who we've imported to a degree, who really can't stand my existence. Well done. I thank you for that. I feel we keep talking about safe spaces. I feel so safe.
Well, I said this right from the word go when all of this sort of started to kick off back in sort of 2016. I said the worst enemy isn't Trump, isn't the far right. It isn't any of that kind of stuff. What the enemy is, what's going to cause all the massive backlash to any of us, is the constant, incessant noise and pot banging and marching and shouting and screaming and carrying on. It's going to get up a lot of people's noses. And for what? We already had equality on the law.
Yeah. And I think it's important that we say that. And like I said, we set up this discussion and then we layer it into Doctor Who. So please hang around for a few more minutes, folks, while we just get this established. Now, Brian's got back to me. I asked him the question because he said the gay community in America. Now he says TQ. I apologize. TQ. I can't say it. TQ plus people are just as important as the LGB. Well, I haven't said there is a difference in value. What I've said is, you said that gay people in America are scared. If you're saying it's the TQ people, remember Q represents straight people.
Yeah. Well, this is the problem. You can define the G, you can define the L, you can define the B, but you cannot define what T and Q means, or the plus. You can't, because there are so many different very subjective descriptions of it. No one can even agree what the Q even is, because originally, and I remember this when it was added to the acronym, the ever-growing acronym, the Q didn't mean the queer word. It meant questioning, and that's been completely erased, but that's what it meant. And it's been changed to represent what is fundamentally a homophobic slur. And you've brought that in, and it's like Brendan just said, it's straight people. It's effectively straight people who want to ride the wave of oppression.
Yeah.
And the T can never be defined because, is it transvestite, transsexual, transgender, non-binary? What does that mean? It's not defined. It can't be defined under law because it's so incredibly subjective.
So it's
not. Sorry,
James.
And there's a lot of homophobia coming from the TQ plus, may I add, as well.
Yeah, go on, James.
So it's basically just a useless piece of propaganda. You can't even define what it means, but you have to agree with it.
Yeah.
Well, and we'll go and look at some Doctor Who scripts in a moment. So here we go. So RTD himself, right? So this is how it was set up in our different news outlets and everywhere. Russell T Davies was accepting the Gaydio Pride Icon Award. I mean, I have to say, number one, I hadn't heard of Gaydio. And then you go Pride. I have an issue with the word pride, which is, you can have a campaign, you can be an advocate for something, but gay pride, I don't have gay pride, just like I don't have gay shame. It's just,
should we name it arrogance?
Yeah, or riling people. Anyway, I think times are darkening beyond all. Oh, hold on, let's get serious, because RTD. Whoa,
times are darkening beyond all.
Yeah. Oh my God, I think times are darkening beyond all measure, and listen to the language, beyond all measure and beyond anything I have seen in my lifetime. Well, you're looking in the wrong direction, mate. The threat from America, it's like something that the Lord of the Rings, it's like an evil rising in the West. Now, we're going to look at that in a moment. Don't worry. I'm just setting it up. So this was, just in case anybody's just going, where's my Doctor Who? Gaydio Pride Awards at the Hilton on Deansgate on Friday, and it was a dazzling spectacle to commend and champion LGBTQ charities. Now, you know for a fact, if I was a gay bloke who'd written some drama and become famous for it and done well off it, I could only, I think, get an award in 2025 if in my speech or in my scripts in the future, I lean into more of the TQ element of this. I don't think you can write a gay drama about just having the usual woes of life. I think I think this sets the context for RTD. He's a gay man, that's it. He's a white gay man. And he stood up there and he really ranted on about the tea element and the tea dangers. So here we go. Just show you one or two more, and then I'm know Lee is champing at the bit. He says in one part of his speech, I want to say it's going to be all rainbows. Please no. Skipping down the street, hand in. Why is he doing this? Why do gay people have to be sounding like they're skipping? And
I know.
Please grow up, man, grow up. So there he is. He's in full mode. I noticed a few weeks ago when, whether it's Elon Musk or various people in the Trump campaign, they keep showing you a certain salute, don't they? Or photograph. They try and show you various things. And I have to say, I could have done the same with him. It gets silly, this game. But anyway, there he is.
Finger wagging as usual. Dictatorial as ever.
Yeah, and do watch the video, everybody, and just watch it for the... Actually, I think you can understand it. When adrenaline is driven and the exaggeration comes in, he had to speak on behalf of other people again. Anyway, here we go. As promised, he says, as a gay man, I feel like a wave of anger and violence and resentment is heading towards us on a vast scale. Oh my God. Get the dinghies out the channel because they're going to be swamped by all this wave of anger and violence and resentment. Oh my God, it sounds like a tsunami. I've literally seen a difference in the way I'm spoken to as a gay man since the November election.
Bullshit.
And that's a few months of weaponizing hate speech. The trouble is, this is like Meghan Markle saying my truth. I can't authenticate anything he says there. That's just saying he has a vibe.
Well, everything about his position is about vibes and perception, but it's completely... I think what it is, because he's been in an echo chamber for so long, it's bouncing around in his little bubble, and it sort of resonates to the point that that bubble bursts, and I think he's just become so completely wound up by what other people tell him, because he surrounds himself by people who merely feed into that, As a gay man, I feel a wave of anger and violence. Well, what about the wave of anger and violence levied at women at the women meetings, by the TQ plus community, so-called? You don't mention any of that, do you, Russell? Just saying.
Yeah. Now it's interesting because Pickles has picked up on. I make a reference about the arm gestures. I wanted to make a point, obviously, Pickles, that Elon Musk, it was an interesting thing he did, but I can't account for what everybody does. My point is, I have seen countless photographs of Hillary Clinton and everybody else in awkward positions when you get a freeze frame of a shot. And it just shows you when people are just trying to manufacture things. The Elon Musk can explain himself and defend himself, and that's not my job. I'm trying to defend my Doctor Who show when somebody who should be a public servant to the BBC is over-speaking. He's turned into the Gary Lineker of Doctor Who, Carol Vorderman of Doctor Who. It's like, oh, for God's sake. So anyway, here's all the context, and this is what I promised for Lee, especially because he wanted every comma in. So here we go. RTD's rambling rhetoric. Now, so here we go. We've had bad prime ministers and we've had bad presidents before. And the sky is blue and the grass is green. I mean, blimmin' hell, how to milk a speech. What we have never had, and there's a reason for that, isn't there, is a billionaire tech baron, unelected, openly hating his trans daughter and therefore weaponizing all of his power against us. Now, I think he's mixing a few things there, but anyway, we have never had this in the history of the world. Whoa.
Really?
I know, my God. My God, I mean, if you get all the encyclopedias out and go, I mean, wow, he's done his homework, apparently. I wish he'd done his SUTEC homework. It is terrifying because he and the people like him are in control of the facts. Okay, round one, and I'll say James first, just while Lee can salivate a bit.
Well, I'd just like to let me just scroll back down to it. Just like to echo what Adrian Sherlock just said. This is the age of nonsense we live in, where we have feelings discussed like facts. That pretty much puts the nail in what I think. And yeah, it's absolutely mad. I mean, I'm sure there are far more dangerous places for gay people to be than the United States, or trans people to be than the United States.
Yeah,
I mean, unless like the buildings
existential.
are taller, you know, I don't like it's. The problem is he's saying like, oh, this is terrifying, and he's using all this emotive language when all it is a regime change. It's a different person signing the paperwork. You know, maybe some policies will be different, mostly economic, or maybe to do with foreign policy. Stuff internally is not really going to change, and it's just trying to sensationalize everything to try and bring attention on himself. It is, I would say, it is absolutely attention seeking overall.
You're right. Now, Lee, just before you start on this, right? As somebody has just said in the thread, and I was thinking this when I watched particularly his performance in the video, when I see him in action. And we know all the rumors that he's already been sacked. And, you know, he has to hold the line because they all have to. Season 2 hasn't come out yet and all the rest of it. I have to say, he's got nothing to hold back on, because even for him, he was really going for it. And I would have thought, I'm sure the BBC would have been sweating over this if he was still their property.
Yeah, well, he's off the reins, isn't he? But I think he's pretty much been always off the reins anyway. I mean, we only need to look at his previous speech when he was, you know, talking about Tories, whatever, being liars, murderers, and bastards, or whatever it was. And there's a lot of money in this room. Yeah, there's a lot of money in that room, Russell. But I bet they all agree with you. So that's a complete canard anyway. You know, we've had bad prime ministers and we've had bad presidents before. Yes, we had. Biden was absolutely terrible. Look at how he started with what happened in Afghanistan. Look at all the nonsense that, you know, prevailed over those numbers of years. And we've got Keir Starmer in now in the UK. Why are you not talking about how he froze the pensioners over the winter, how he screwed over the farmers who are struggling to make a living, how he's talking about conscription and bringing about, you know, a war with Russia, or how about the benefits cap for disabled people on PIP? I mean, why didn't you talk about that, Russell? I've not heard you open your mouth yet about any of this. And you know what? When he was elected, Keir Starmer, I didn't vote for him. No surprise there. I mean, I used to vote Labour pretty much most of my life, but not anymore, because I've seen right through it, you know. And this guy is our prime minister, and I don't like it, but I accept that that's what it is until the next election or whatever, when we have another chance to get rid of him. That's how it works. That's democracy. And unfortunately, Russell, you don't seem to understand the concept.
Yeah.
You may not like it, but that's the will of the people.
Now, Lee, I'm not stopping because it just, I want to bring in, you know, like, so we can get different opinion.
Sure.
Pickles is, I think, and Pickles, I appreciate this because it's supposed to be debate, right? So let's push back on a few things. Pickles, can you help me and Lee and James out here? You're saying this is just right-wing talking points. Now, look, that's a phrase. I need to know, just give us a couple of examples where you think we're just falling into other tropes, just so I understand, and we can actually then bring you into the debate, because I'd prefer that.
Is anything I just said untrue?
Well, this is what I mean, but this is the magic of this part of our discussion anyway. We are referring to what's been said by RTD, or we're pointing out gaps in it or omissions in it, that sort of thing. And folks, don't you worry, you know for a fact I am literally, and I'll just prove it to you, There you go. We will be looking at how it affects Doctor Who and whether there is an issue. So that's what we're leading to. It's setting the context, because lots of people will say, I don't like RTD, or I don't like Doctor Who, or I don't like gay people, or whatever they waffle on about. And half the time it's ignorance. So we've got the prime ministers and presidents bit, but I know the bit that was actually, I don't know, really, really getting you angry was the bit in the middle there. The fact that whether he's a billionaire or not, there's plenty of billionaires now who have interesting views, I have to say.
So many billionaires have been involved in politics, whether it be the Republicans or whether it be the Democrats. They've always had lobby groups of billionaires who, it's same in this country. You get billionaires or millionaires funding one party or the other. There's nothing new about that. No one complained when, you know, Labour the last time had billionaires involved, or you had the Open Society or Soros or any of these others. You know, nobody complained about that on the left. But when a right wing does it, one guy, Elon, is not elected. Okay, he wasn't elected, but
Trump campaigned with him.
He campaigned with him. People knew what they were getting.
You know, he was promised. He was promised to the American people. He was part of the campaign.
That's right.
We see, but you know, I'm trying to dovetail it into slightly closer to as we build to Doctor Who. As Anthony Parkinson says here, and this is what I was also thinking when I watched the performance. He's either been sacked and therefore he who cares, you know, blah blah blah. He's angry. The other thing is, Trump is now in America. DEI looks as though it's dead. A lot of the corporations are dumping it as fast as they can. And therefore, RTD knows he's out of date. And therefore, he's angry. And therefore, as Anthony Parkinson says, Disney must be thrilled at having both Ziegler and RTD gobbing off, destroying their investments. Yeah. Exactly.
Well, look, you know, Russell T Davies thinks he's riding a wave when the tide is out. That's just the sad reality of it. You know, he can shout into the wind and preach to his choir, but unfortunately, it's not that way anymore. And part of the reason why the tide has changed is directly because of the insane levels of activism that have been perpetuated, and the targeting of children with a certain ideology. You cannot therefore complain when people go, do you know what? I don't agree with that. I think that's wrong, fundamentally wrong. But you stick to it, and you crack your whip and you dictate and you tell people to go and educate themselves. Well, people have educated themselves, and do you know what? They disagree with you. That's something you have to understand. That's something you have to educate yourself on. Why you failed. Because the mood has changed. People are no longer frightened, and they have been frightened to speak up against these certain things because it's gone on so long and so violently, so aggressively. We've seen how violent that side of the argument can become. But people have had, you know what, we're not going to be intimidated by this anymore. We're not going to have the law used to silence people. I mean, in the UK, that's a moot point because it is being used in that respect. But I just want to go on to about him openly hating his trans daughter.
Yeah,
I think that is pretty revolting, quite honestly. He doesn't hate his daughter. No,
he's heartbroken over it. I've seen a few interviews.
And it's his son. Okay.
Yeah.
And he understands it, and he wants to protect his son and can't. Do you know how utterly devastating that must be for him? You know, and from what I've seen of that offspring, they very entitled, spoilt brat, quite honestly. That's just my opinion.
Well, can I just say something on this? Because I had a panelist on a while back who has a family history in this. And so while he's, you know, you have David Tennant at the BAFTAs, you know, going on about Trump's hair. We now slag off the people who are working with him. Again, it's got to be linked to Doctor Who in a minute, but this openly hating his trans daughter and therefore weaponizing all of his power against us, that's a manipulation of a situation, and also from a position of ignorance. Do I know? No. Does RTD? No. But the thing I will say is, having talked to this panelist who was so gutted and upset that his daughter had transed to a man, and in her early 20s was balding, was struggling. I mean, once you've made the decision and you've acted on the decision,
Irreversible.
it's irreversible, and you just have to hope that that person is happy with what's happened. You know, you have to just hope that it was for the right things and it wasn't, because, you know, as I said, I've taught children who thought they were this, that, and the other, and then they changed their mind a year later. So what I'm saying is, but the point is, this father hated the trans movement because of what it had done to his daughter. And I understood that, but obviously loved his, you know, daughter, but hated what all this had done.
When you have an ideology that actively and openly targets children with sterilization, mutilation of their bodies, and fills their minds with radical beliefs that are untenable in the reality that we live in, that will lead to permanent health problems in the future, shortening their lifespans, giving them osteoporosis, giving them all manner of serious problems, and things can go wrong. When you're teaching children that they are born in the wrong body, that's a religion, that's a theology, because you're talking about a soul born in the wrong. Do you not understand that that is not anything related to an atheistic belief system? That is a theology. You have to believe in a soul to be born in the wrong body. Do you understand? There's something that's not being presented fully here.
And Lee, as two people who've probably had years when we were in the closet as kids and stuff like that, can I just say something, just so people out there can understand how this is strange, how these people talk like this? When you are closeted as a lad who's or girl who's trying to work out what they are sexuality wise, you don't have parents saying, "You're gay, aren't you? You're gay. It's great to be gay," and they are forcing you on you before you've even thought of that concept.
It preys on vulnerability, and a lot of these children that they're targeting are often just either straight but confused, or they're gay or will grow up to become gay. And when you are convincing young gay or autistic or straight kids who are just confused that they are born in the wrong body and that they should try, and affirmed, this is the key word, affirmed. Everything was about affirmed. And we see, you know, the CAS report talking about how this kind of thing should not be encouraged, because it does prey on certain very vulnerable groups of kids who will, if left alone, will desist in this, and has been shown statistically to desist in this. And unfortunately, a lot of statistics which would be useful, well, no records were kept by these gender affirming clinics. So you have to understand that the desist rate has become clouded because of the records kept, which only kept records of their so-called successful transitions. But the fact that we're even talking about this when it relates to children is unconscionable. And I think in the future, we will look back on these times and go, what the hell were we thinking? And for the RTD to get out there and promote this, and to call Elon Musk openly hating his trans daughter and therefore weaponizing all his power against her. As a father, you would, because you've seen what it's done to your child and so many other countless children. And it's only going to reach the tip of the iceberg when all these things come out in court eventually. And that's going to happen.
And I saw this in teaching when you got some quite liberal-minded teachers who had no skin in the game. They just liked to be pious and
they like to be seen to be doing the right thing.
And they used to say, oh, and you know, you'd be in a social services meeting or something, and you'd hear, you know, sometimes they'd go, oh, the parents sound really horrible and really almost abusive because they were unhappy with their child being gay. Now, that can be a distortion of so many things. You've got to be careful with all this language. when I used to say to the kids in a certain way, when you come out, you've got to give the space to the other person who didn't know you were about to come out. You've had years of building up to it. They've been given a second's notice. You've got to give people space to reflect and get measured. And sometimes we know it can be a horrible reaction. And sometimes I know that it's a horrible reaction that then mellows. In some cases, sadly, it just stays. But the point is, you have for years been looking at your mum and dad and your friends and trying to work out whether you should say something. But then as soon as you say it, that person has got a second's notice to respond. And so, yes, people react in interesting ways, sometimes volatile ways. I am not going to judge that. That's not fair.
When it comes to these things, so, you know, when we talk, you know, RTD talking about Musk and all this weaponizing all his power against us, and well, look, you know, I've not, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've not heard him say, oh, you're on the wrong side of history, or you should not exist anymore, like certain other people who are on your side, Russell, you know, who do have trans kids, apparently, you know, which it's a word I do not adhere to, but it's like, oh, so you're okay with parents wanting to mess their kids with drugs, puberty blockers, with surgery potentially to correct their wrong body and to sterilize them and to lead them to, you know, increased risk of cancer and osteoporosis and a number of other things, like a certain actor that you used to work with, Russell, a certain Mr. Tennant.
Yeah.
But he's okay. He's
Well,
okay wanting to bring that on his child, but it's wrong for to want to protect.
Well, as Mr. Squinty Mint is saying, this isn't our political debate show or anything like that. And obviously, when's your context going to end? And a few people are saying, so what I'll do is I'll dovetail back. Trans is mentioned on this page. Now, can I just go back into where this does dovetail into Doctor Who? Because he's been going mad about people like Elon Musk controlling the agenda and controlling facts and weaponizing things. So, okay, then Squinty Mint and okay, others like Pickles and everybody. Here's my example. Here's case study number 1. Trans child tells off the doctor for assuming the beep was male. There's the starting point. We are binary, but and then, of course, we had the doctor and Donna realizing that Rose is more than male and female. And the quote is, we are binary. That's the doctor and Donna talking. We are binary, but she is not, because the doctor is male and female and Rose is neither and more.
So why call him she?
Well, there's that.
No,
but we see, I don't know what I had problems with.
It's a total contradiction, isn't it?
Really? It is. It's a total contradiction. You use the female pronoun.
Yeah, so, but yeah. The bit I always picked on when this happened is that Rose, being a trans character, is not binary, blah, 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 but is more than a male and female. I'm sorry, but you see, this is what I mean. You can say respect trans people, respect gay people. Yes. But what's this more? What's this? I am more than you.
I'm different, therefore I'm better. Like, no, equality has to mean equality. That's oh well, turn my camera off. Equality has to mean equality. You know, you can't say, oh, I mean, it's the traditional old, some people are more equal than others, but turned on its head. Yeah. If you want to be equal, that means you're equal. It doesn't mean you're better than somebody who's more perhaps usual or common, or I don't know what the right word would be, but I suppose more average than you. You're not better than them. If you want to be equal, then you've got to be equal.
But then it got worse, didn't it? I mean, this is the other one, Lee. It's still in that one episode. Remember, he was trying to celebrate 60 years of Doctor Who and bring it back as a special. And it says here that Donna and Rose gan up, and this is my words, of course, Donna and Rose gan up as the sisterhood against the Doctor.
They admonished the Doctor in the 60th anniversary to denigrate him because he's a man, even though he was a woman before. So that doesn't make any sense anyway. Yeah, look, it goes to prove that man does not like Doctor Who. He likes it as a vehicle for his objectives. As I said in the last room we did, I think he's embarrassed of Doctor Who, and that's why he brought it back to be Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets, I don't know, whatever current day thing, Stranger Things or whatever. So he wants it to be Americanized. He wants it to be global. He wants it to be a populist show, but with his political leanings.
Yeah, a populist show, but he wants to be the one who's popular. Or his opinion needs to be the popular opinion. Which means he needs to indoctrinate and change the opinion of the masses.
Yeah, but the snag with it is he has just literally this week accused somebody in America who he doesn't actually know. I mean, the truth is, you think you know people in this. I've never said anything personal about RTD because I don't know him, but I can play the ball. Now here in the same script, we know everything. Thanks. This is Donna, a female, and Rose, a trans child character. We know everything. Thanks, and you know nothing. It is a shame you are not a woman anymore because she would have understood you can let go of all that regenerative power, something a male presenting Time Lord will never understand. Now, please tell me how that is not propaganda, how that is not kind of distorting facts, how that is not trying to indoctrinate. Honestly, RTD, you don't know what you're talking about. You're accusing somebody else of doing exactly what you're doing with your platform, which is supposed to be a friendly, innocent drama.
And using a male to preach about what women are, and written by a gay man, putting misandrist words into this guy's mouth. It's just... it's so perverse in the way that it's just so jumbled into a morass of complete and utter nonsense. And for a Deus Ex Machina, this has to be one of the most bizarre, nonsensical ones I've seen yet in Doctor Who. Which it's not Doctor Who. That's why I refuse to watch it. But it doesn't speak to the masses. It doesn't speak to 60 years of Doctor Who, and it certainly doesn't represent any sensical writing in any way. It's just complete nonsense. It's a total canard. Male presenting. What does that even mean? Either you're male or you're not.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit like we were as a society. I can't speak for every single person, of course, so let's get it right. But society in the 90s had got to quite a comfortable position in Britain overall. Gay rights were just about there in various ways. I mean, we had gay rights, but what I mean is regarding adoption and various other things, right? So the whole thing, that was all happening, and I felt as a society we're much more colorblind, and yet because now everything is pointed out, they point out melanin, color, they mention blind casting as if all this sort of stuff, and in the end you get, I think this is tired, very weird dialogue about male presenting, female presenting. And may I say, it is still something that's been discussed by prevent teams and everything about toxic masculinity. Fantastic. So toxic masculinity is an issue. So now we have toxic sisterhood.
Well, no, it's not. It's not sisterhood. This is toxic masculinity. Just an address.
Well, it's written by a man, an angry man, and so when we come
so male presenting, does that include? Because isn't the 14th Doctor gay now? So isn't that homophobic?
You see, this is what I mean. The male presenting stuff is all about the outer, isn't it? It's about it's just how you present.
It's superficial.
Exactly.
And it's basing, isn't it ironic when they talk about discrimination and hate and all this kind of stuff, yet they're quite happy to admonish an entire group of people off the cuff, because you're male presenting, you don't understand. Again, male bashing for what, you're talking about half the population of the planet.
But you see, we were brought up with, I mean, I know little girls have to deal with various stories, I suppose. Sometimes, if you really wanted to read into it, you know, the damsel in distress thing, I was aware of that. And it's funny, though, a lot of the feminist English teachers I worked with still wanted their daughters to read that material because it's fun and it's fairy tale and all the rest of it. It's just as you grow up to be aware that that's not the truth. But I also was aware that it wasn't all pure and amazing and a free reign for lads.
Well, no, look, I mean, just look at what they've done to the Doctor, right? A male role model for countless years, who wasn't a particularly violent character. Sometimes he had to use violence to survive, but generally, you know, a man who uses wits and intelligence to get out of situations and to save the day, not carrying guns and all this other stuff, right? A very unusual, very good role model for boys. You turned him into a woman who then said that she'd had an upgrade because, you know, and then we had all the thing about, you know, oh, well, that testosterone and, you know, how do you deal with that ego and all this kind of stuff. So this is telling boys that they're egotists and that they're wrong and that they're bad. And then you turn that one into this guy who gets admonished for being a male presenting and who might be a bit gay all of a sudden because why not? You know, because you can switch that on and off apparently. And then becomes a crying wreck who just can't handle anything, you know.
And as you,
how is this? This is deliberately undermining a
but it's
role model.
But it's ambushing everything. So we've been talking for 53 minutes, and I'm well aware that people are champing at the bit. People who are gay or straight are going, when are we talking about Doctor Who? When are we talking about? Because and that's why I've put Brian's quote up here. I don't want the LGBT, and he's very tolerant, he's very open, he's, you know, decent bloke.
Except when it comes through Israel, but okay.
Except what? Sorry.
Nothing. Carry on.
I don't want the LGBTQ stuff to be the dominating, you know, to be dominating Doctor. And this is the point. This is where people have turned away. I put some quotes up from people saying, you know, this is the moment that their wife stopped watching it and all the rest of it. So you see, he mentions the trans issue to do with Elon Musk. That's pretty personal stuff. Doesn't matter, you know. And, you know, we've got the David Tennant issue where I hope he's just a caring. I'm just going to say, because I don't know, caring dad doing his best he hopes for. But then when it's mentioned in speeches and stuff, does it then become weaponized, or is it just you're so
it's weaponized?
Or is it because you've vociferously been a dad protective? Because it is a hard one, I have to say.
But why is it true for one and not the other? So if it's true for Tennant, why is it not true for Musk?
Well, because he seems to be more accepting.
Right, but accepting of what? That you want to sterilize your child and, you know, send them down this road of terminable, you know, forever being on, you know, medication for the rest of your life and sterilized. I mean, is that really where we're at? Is that really?
This is.
And is Elon Musk a bad person for not wanting that to happen to his son?
Well, this is what I mean. And look, where I'm desperately trying to link it with Doctor Who is we are sci-fi readers and viewers. And
but science fiction shouldn't be in reality. And what they're trying to push is a science fiction reality on the rest of us.
Well, no, because this is it. You know, if we know Animal Farm, 2 and 2 equals 5. We know how this works. Squealer, the pig who was the propagandist. We can see what's going on here, and so it's uncomfortable. It is a pain in the neck that this amount of politics is cranked into Doctor Who, and yet, you know, you can't deny it's happening. This page is much more, I think, classic sci-fi of where we are. He makes the RTD says Elon Musk, they are in control of information. They are in control of what people think. And that is what we're now facing. I mean, I've just shown you 3 slides where one episode of Doctor Who seemed to be telling people what to think. But do you know what we'll do? Do you know what we'll always do in times of peril and crisis? And by the way, everybody, you've got to watch the video because he's in a room where he's the Gaydio icon. I assume the audiences are all kind of advocates of LGBT.
Choir.
Yeah. But when he said, and because he was getting fired up, the adrenaline was going because he had nothing to say because he's just a gay man.
The finger was wagging.
Yes, and he said, "Do you know what we'll do in times of peril and crisis?" And what did I hear? I could hear people just talking. It was like a room at the Brits. People are just talking and drinking. And then he goes, "We gather." And I thought, gather is such a weak term verb. But anyway, we gather. I mean, gosh, that sounds like we're villagers from medieval times. So
pitchforks at the ready.
But the point there, I mean, how many science fiction stories, how many Doctor Who stories have done about who's got control of information? I mean, RTD wrote about it in season 1 when it was the what was the channel that ran all the channels? And it was like a skit, I suppose, on Rupert Murdoch or somebody. Channel whatever 500. Remember, he had Big Brother and everything, and the Jagrafest and all the rest of it. So they're in control of information. They're in control of what people think, and that is what we are now facing. Now, he can say that, except he has got skin in the game, and he's actually been deliberately using Doctor Who, and we can say on countless occasions, to actually do the very same thing.
They are in control of information. Who's in control of information for so long? People who dissented against any of this current day nonsense were banned, blocked, persecuted, arrested, you name it. The BBC is completely captured. Channel 4 is completely captured. Sky is completely captured. All people like RTD are in control of information and what people think. And that, well, they think they are. That's the thing. That hubris, the utter hubris by RTD and his ilk are of this sanctimonious collective ideology where if you don't think like us, you are the enemy, must be completely destroyed. The media, the mainstream media, for going on 30 years now, at least, if not more, have controlled the flow of information. That's how we've gotten to where we are today without much resistance, even though they think there's constant resistance. Well, resistance of your own making. You pipe up, you create an enemy, and then you fight that enemy. See, it's problem, reaction, solution. You know, it's right there. It's a handbook.
But the other thing is about this thing about control of information. Yeah, he's making a point about totalitarian, and he's making a point about the Rupert Murdochs.
Elon Musk buys Twitter, and that's it. Now everyone is a far right, controls all the meeting. One platform is taken away from them and given free speech, even though I have to say, not for me, but it was one platform, and that was it.
We see this is, but you know, it's okay. Oh, well done, great speech. You know, oh, we've got to stop this. Everybody's got. But then I go back to Doctor Who, and I go, right. Well, it's interesting because you've changed basically you've changed what all this was about. So, for example, if I just get to it, there you go. We had Donna suggesting she always knew that the Doctor was gay. Now, this is, you're in charge of the information, and suddenly, even though we've all got non-fiction books on Doctor Who, the origins, the middle years, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, we've all got the material, haven't we? And we know he was asexual and he was a male-presenting Time Lord. Now, suddenly, we are told by the great propagandist at the moment, the toy maker showrunner, that the Doctor was always gay. And I'm sorry. And there's the quote. The Doctor says, "Oh, was Isaac Newton hot?" And she says, "Well, it was never that far from the surface." John Pertwee's Doctor? Patrick Troughton's Doctor? I mean, this is farcical. And Tom Baker's Doctor, if he was going to get it off with anyone, it was going to be Sarah. I mean, come on. This is ridiculous. And this is what I mean.
But it's stunning. It's stunning homosexuality as a skin, as a costume. It's never been hinted at ever before. Even in 2004, when RTD spoke up, when he was asked a question, "Will you write a gay Doctor?" He said, "Don't be ridiculous." And here we are. He's been biding his time, quite clearly. Sorry, I interrupted, Karen.
But this is it. And James, I mean, you know, when you look at all this from your show, do you think, what? Okay, if the 15th Doctor's a gay version of the Doctor, maybe we can live with it, just like the Jodie Whittaker was the first female or something. You know, maybe we can all just live with it. But not to say every Doctor before actually was gay or had those tendencies, because just like that Tinkerbell regeneration fairy dust, he seems to be kind of vandalizing all of old Who. Where do you stand on this, James? Because it seems to me he's having his cake and eating it here.
Again, it's just the ego. What I don't like is what it's doing to the current show. It's dividing people. You know, the show was never about sexuality. It never was, and so it was for everybody. And to not only change that, so to only try to appeal to a specific audience, which is actually a very, very small audience compared to literally everybody, how it was before. It's also going back and trying to vandalize other people's work. To me, it's a bit like the climate protesters throwing soup at paintings. It's acting out, and it's frankly childish.
Well, rewriting history is exactly what Stalin did. You know, he would airbrush people out photographs. This is the same kind of modus operandi. This is what radical left do, you know. And I would consider myself over the number of years to have been quite on the left. You know, now I find myself politically homeless because I've just seen how utterly insane it's all become. And was it always like this? And that's when you start educating yourself and actually looking back and going, geez, you know, there's a history of all this, you know. And now I like certain social things to be there. I like certain safety nets in society and things like that. So I'm socially progressive, but I'm quite conservative in many respects now, more so than I ever was before.
We see what I've found in Doctor Who circles, which I've tiptoed into a lot more. I never really, apart from that Lonleat 83, I really didn't mix with any of this. What I've found, and I've even found it even in a school environment with teachers, so, you know, people who should know better. And what I've found is, so, for example, when the Jodie Whittaker was the first female Doctor, and everyone said, "Oh, you'll be so chuffed with this! Oh, isn't this amazing?" and blah blah blah, and then first gay Doctor, and isn't this amazing? We've got a trans character, isn't this amazing? And all the rest of it. And when you say, look, yes, I am a Doctor Who geek, and I do know my Doctor Who, and this is, you know, I'm tentative, depending on where I am, and I'll be saying, but this hadn't happened before. The Doctor couldn't, a Time Lord couldn't actually change gender before, but that was Stephen Moffat queered that pitch up. So basically, lots of truths are being changed, and people kind of just then squint and look at you a little bit, and then you're going, I know, but you know, it was always like that, and now it's kind of, we've hit this choppy patch where everything seems to be much more fluid and mutable, and that's where we seem to have got to. But the killer, James and Lee, is this: when you suddenly say, but this hadn't been the case before, you then get them saying, it's our show now. And it's as if they're saying they've captured it. And then you see the political campaigning element, because you're going, oh, this isn't a story. Oh, no, this isn't a beautiful little narrative.
No, it's graffiti. It's stickers on lampposts.
I tell you what it is. It's panic. They panicked. They saw a shift in the culture, and they panicked, and they went all out to try and desperately steer it the way that they want to. The fact that they're taking a show which is primarily the largest, I would probably argue, I mean, you can prove me wrong or right on this, is that the main target audience for Doctor Who has always been young males, usually. I mean, Tennant brought in, you know, the fangirls and things. I understand that it's not just a boys' show, but as a male role model, it was something that spoke to boys at a certain level. So by queering it, they are trying to use it to engage in a quite subversive way to try and manipulate young minds into thinking this is the way to be. Aren't we happy? Aren't we powerful? Aren't we supremacists suddenly? You know, and that's what it is. It acts like a supremacist movement.
And you know what? I never thought about this at the time because, you know, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not trying to find things. But when Stephen Moffat during those years played around with Hellbent and had the gender fluid moment with a Time Lord changing from male to female, and, you know, everybody's going and all that stuff. But you move on a few years later, and then you see the dialogue in Star Beast, and you see what's going on, and then you suddenly go, did you just sow a seed in Doctor Who to the kids and to the families watching that gender fluid is a thing?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so when I'm teaching the kids who are confused, hormonal, trying to find an identity, they are then watching narratives that are saying gender fluidity is a thing. Now, gender fluid, you can feel how you want to feel, but the point is gender fluidity then turns into a political thing, and then it turns into a very medical thing. And
well, it's not for a childless, you know, past middle-age gay man to dictate to children what they should be. You know, that's for families to decide or to discuss between them, or for a child to talk to their teacher about, and the teacher shouldn't be putting ideas into their heads either. And that's increasingly the case and has been for a number of years. And I just think that we're in danger of... The reason why the BBC is in so much trouble now is because it's been caught with its pants down numerous times on many fronts, on many issues, and, you know, from the darkest aspects even to the most blatant in terms of you know, the news and how, you know, like the propaganda thing for Hamas and all this kind of stuff, and gender woo and all the other savage stuff and all the rest of it. You know, he should not really be named, but it's a history of that, and they're all very quiet on these sorts of things. They don't like to sort of draw attention to it, but they do it anyway. And they think the audience or the public are so stupid they will never understand the genius of how they manage to get these messages across so subtly. Oh, subtle my ass. You know, it's not at all. That's the problem. They panicked. They were trying to do it under the radar, and now they're just gone full.
Have I missed something? I mean, honestly, you know, sometimes you can, you know, you can't see the wood for the trees. Gavin Williams is saying Moffat changing the fact that a Time Lord couldn't change gender isn't correct at all, Brendan. I think Douglas Adams might have started that. Now, I'm racking my brains. I know we had the Destiny of the Daleks moment when we had that stupid Romana regeneration tripe, but I'm trying to think. Can anyone help us? I'm trying to think. I thought it was Stephen Moffat who started this whole game off, really. But if I'm wrong, I will stand corrected and do another detention. No.
I don't think you should take a visual joke from Destiny of the Daleks as some sort of canonizing aspect. I think it was just a joke. It was like the Morbius Doctors thing was a joke. It didn't last very well because it got taken seriously, and this is the problem. People are quite easy to retroactively appropriate things from the past in order to justify what they're doing in the present. Things like the Romana regeneration was, for me, her playing some kind of Gallifrey mind trick. I don't believe it was all a different bunch of regenerations just wasted like that and changing species or whatever. No. I think that was just projecting, you know.
Well, Pickles, I mean, I appreciate this is what I like about our thread, where basically, and I'm hoping we all stay on the right side of things, because people should have diverse opinions and
absolutely
be able to live in the thread and not be kind of, you know, feel uncomfortable. But thank you, Pickles, to help me out here, because obviously when you're talking and rattling and slides and everything, gender fluidity is just a way of breaking harmful gender norms and stereotypes, and I can buy into that.
Well, let me just give you a bit of background history to where I'm coming from. I have always been pretty gender non-conforming when I was in my 20s and whatnot. You know, I used to do all the goth stuff. I used to go with makeup on and all that kind of stuff, and very much in the sort of Bowie kind of thing. I
used to do that too, and I wound up straight.
Yeah.
It's normal.
And I didn't.
Aye.
Yeah, and that's why I have no problems with bending gender or playing around with the visual imagery or living how you want to be, dressing, expressing yourself how you want. I have a problem with it when it becomes ideological, when it becomes something that has to be used politically to beat people, browbeat people.
I think the truth is you say,
and not targeting kids with it.
Yeah, just let the kids play. And you know, the golden rule of every parent and common sense teacher was you don't in a way on these matters, you don't give them the answers before they've asked the question. You wait for the question, because the question tells us they've got to a certain point of thinking. My parents didn't sit me down when I was 5 saying, do you know there's gay people? I mean, no.
No.
And this is the point. And I so, you know, when we're all LGBTQ, blah, 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 I'm sorry, but my G education, so to speak, was you had to find your own way. You had to come out yourself. You had to face the flak or whatever. And you didn't have anything on telly that said this is a great thing either. And you didn't have teachers. I mean, Section 28. Yeah. Oh, yes. All our school teachers were saying, we're looking for gay boys and gay girls because we're proud of you. No, you know, come on. So
being gay, coming out, you know, whatever. I mean, for children who are confused, whatever, or they come out as gay, whatever. That's totally not the same thing as being told you're in the wrong body and then put on puberty blood. There is no physical or chemical change that needs to happen in order for you to come out as gay. But when you're saying that your child is trans and you put these ideas into their heads and they are like litmus paper, they just absorb all that, they are on a path of irreversible harm potentially.
Yeah, I mean that's the exact point. I mean, nobody's against equality for who people are, how they identify, what they want to be. That's absolutely fine. It's when you start involving children, it becomes a problem. And when you start involving irreversible damage, when you start involving children,
and I'm sorry,
but serious problem.
Yeah, and there's too many people who have had nothing to do with children, have not made a career of it, haven't brought them up themselves, and seem to think they know it all. Well, no, you don't. No. You're a script writer. Stick to that. You tend to write soap, and you tend to write light, frothy, superficial comedy. Get on with that. But don't tell me you're the great kind of Noah. No, you're not.
Don't run for politics. You know, if you want to spout your politics, go and become a politician. Don't use Doctor Who as your political propaganda machine.
I mean, and I'll get back to the speech. In a way, he was trying to go, oh, you know, I'm the great I am, and come on, we've done this before. However, if you're a coward, you will hide behind a script and just produce stuff. If you really want to be bothered about this stuff, you stand for Parliament, because you'll see how many thousands vote for you or don't. Now, Michael Nemo, thank you for supporting us. A super chat, thank you very much. A Time Lord that can change gender is an attempt at equality, not the promotion of gender fluidity.
I don't get that. If it's, you know, with due respect, an attempt at equality, I don't think that. I mean, why not just have really strong female Time Lord characters? And it's funny because people
like
say people keep saying time lady. Romana actually referred to herself in the Creature of the Pit, in the Pit, as a Time Lord. But I think that's fine. And I will say, you know, why not just bring Romana back, or another, you know, the Rani? It's funny, they never brought the Rani back because RTD thought people didn't know who she was, and you know, what a weak argument.
And then he brought Susek back.
Yeah, right. But that's the thing, you know, why not just have great female Time Lords? But you know, you keep going back and destroying Gallifrey over and over again, so you know, you're undermining that possibility. But rather than, And I've explained the problems with it because they don't think things through. The problem with changing gender and the problem with infinite regenerations that the Doctor now has is that the Doctor will eventually, in a finite universe, in a Big Bang universe, right, where you have a beginning, middle, and end, and you have an infinite number of lives, and you can change gender, you're eventually going to populate the entire universe with just yourself and your children, because there'll be no one left to procreate with other than yourself. Because that's what infinity is in a finite universe. You understand? It's like it cannot work. This is the problem when you have unintellectual people writing science fiction, because they think they're more smarter than they actually are, but they don't actually follow through and think about
when I was making my intro for the detention last night, the Doctor Who detention club, everybody take a look even just at the intro, because I wanted to clip some school reunion and the caretaker, for example. I did look at An Earthly Child, but because of the black and white and the grainy quality, I just wanted it to look a certain way. Now, the truth is, when you, and actually me and Jamie said, God, we haven't seen the caretaker for years. We sat down and watched Stephen Moffat's The Caretaker, and the plot, to be quite honest, isn't it the same plot as Joy to the World, where the Doctor has to hang around for quite a few years, just waiting and making conversation. So he ends up being a caretaker. Wasn't he a plumber in the Sandringham Motel? I mean, it's the same plot done again, while he waited for some destructive robot to land again, and that was it. But most of Stephen Moffat's script was light coupling comedy between Mr. Pink,
great series,
and Clara. Yeah, great series. But this is the point. Stephen Moffat, great comedy writing, sharp writing. He's clever in that way. So there was lots of sharp dialogue between Clara, the Doctor, and Mr. Pink. But it wasn't Doctor Who in the way there was no adventure or anything. You had a great moment at the beginning when you saw somebody's hand blown off. And you go, way, nice bit of darkness there. But the rest of it was just kind of couple dynamics and couple politics. And
but I think as well, he was very constrained by people complaining about the way he wrote female characters. So, we had what was actually called the Doctor Who Feminist Front, and this was a real thing. You can go and look it up. Who got in there within sort of the BBC circles and the Doctor Who circles, criticizing Moffat and getting him to write these feminist characters that they wanted to see. So again, this is when you allow politics to influence your creativity. It actually constrains.
But you see, this is my problem. They're starting to repeat themselves now, and that's what I was shocked by. Even with, So anyway, The Caretaker and Joy to the World. Everybody, go and discuss. Now, just to get back onto this, so he's talked about control of information and everything. Then he says, "Do you know what we always do in times of peril and crisis? We gather." We meet in cellars at night. That sounded a bit dodgy, that. And we talk, and we plot, and we sing, and we paint. That sounded funny as well. I'm thinking paint. And we manifest ideas, and we go on marches, and we go on sponsor. And then he stopped himself. I found it quite funny. And we go on stop. We do signatures. We attack. We talk to politicians. We organize ourselves. In the end, what we do is we educate. We take everything we know and we go out there and we educate. Now, I know on some platforms they use a certain G word, a strong verb. That basically hints that you know his actual intentions by evidence. Propagandize? Yes, definitely. Indoctrinate? Definitely. Educate is the politer version of that. Remember, as a teacher, and we did sex education, I'm sorry, but we had to get permission off parents, and they wanted to see the content of what was being said, and therefore I couldn't go off script. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't do a Juno Dawson and tell you some kinks and fetishes. I had to stick roughly to the script, and quite rightly, I'm a public servant paid by the tax purse, and so is RTD.
He has got absolutely no right. Well, I mean, he has every right to say what he wants, but he's no right to claim to be an educator Educate. I mean, does he have some educational qualification to teach? Educate, it seems to be the byword for indoctrinate. If you don't agree with me, you need to go and educate yourself, or I will educate you. Again, it's hubris. It's complete arrogance to assert that you know best, you know better. It's this, again, sanctimonious mindset, the moral superiority. I know more than you plebs. You will do as we educate you to believe. You will do as we say. Otherwise, you're on the wrong side of history. How many times have we heard these phrases? It's, yeah, okay, you're going to go on marches. What's new? Manifest ideas. But they're the same ideas that you've been trotting out time and time again that have been soundly rejected by a huge number of people. The vast majority, I would say. You know, this is why, you know, you're not getting
the
your
ratings.
way. You're having a tantrum. Your ratings, you know, the Trump, all this kind of stuff. People have soundly rejected it in one form or another. You know, whether you agree with Trump or not, that's what people voted for.
Now, he might think he's John Reith, you know, the BBC are here to educate and inform. Remember all that jargon. The thing is,
they educated us about the war in Israel, you know.
But the thing is,
documentary which was taken down.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is about the good old BBC regarding the educate blah blah blah, because I was just putting it in that historical context. When ITV appeared, it got massively wrecked in the ratings because the BBC was very kind of virtuous and very kind of, you know, here's a bit of ballet and here's this and here's that. And it's so middle class that, you know, everyone in my neck of the woods must have been going, oh, wow. Thank you for educating us because we certainly can't afford this. But this was the BBC version of education. There were no ratings in it. And my point is clear. If he thinks, I'll give him, you know, it's his free speech. He thinks he's educating. Well, nobody's watching. I thought you were writing drama. I thought drama at its core is about jeopardy and tension. Where is it? Because all you're getting is one side saying a female presenting Time Lord knows more than a male one, or you've always been a gay doctor. There's no nuance. There's no Malcolm Hulk grey area. This is right and wrong. This is absolutism.
I go back to what I said before. You know, classic Doctor Who taught you how to think. RTD teaches you what to think, and I think that is fundamentally the situation we're at. You know, he thinks he's being some sort of savior or some sort of figure where he can actually stand there and be respected as an authority figure, when in fact he's just an authoritarian figure. You know, I mean, he wants to talk and plot. What do you mean plot? Plot what? You can't even plot your season 1, Russell. Sing and paint. Well, that's going to change the world. Manifest ideas. Yeah, it's just waffle. Organizers. Well, you've organized and you failed. I'm sorry.
I want to know what's wrong with sponsored walks because he seemed to, you know, we paint, we do this, we do that, and you know, we all know RTD even when he's espousing about Doctor Who. You know, this kind of he has that flow, he just can't help himself, and then suddenly we go on sponsor, and he thought that there must have been something in his head going, that's bad. I mean, it's just fascinating what's going on in his head. Clearly not planned. Clearly, he was of the moment, and
he's like a wind-up toy. He's just been wound up, and off he goes. And again, he doesn't think about the concept. He thinks he's speaking to the enlightened, and everyone else is just as ignorant dullard living in the Dark Ages or something. Yet will support very dark age ideologies, and very brutal ones at that. Or stay silent on things. You know, it's very, very selective on the outrage there, Russell. Yeah, but in the end, what we do is we educate. Well, you know, you've been infiltrating the universities and colleges, schools, TV shows, news programs, you name it. It's all been educating us for a long time. And you know what? It's been rejected. A lot of people said, you know what? No, thank you, not today. And he won't handle it. He just cannot handle his arrogant ego being challenged.
But this is why, I mean, and thank you, Brian and the thread, for coming back, because there's different angles on this. And I do like to kind of include the range, because sometimes I will do so many sentences and you almost need more detail, don't you? And of course, there's got to be a Doctor Who backbone to this. Now, obviously, he's him and James are talking to each other, but it's just that, Brian, you're saying it's education. They're not trying to turn them trans.
Yes, they are.
But there is
they are.
But what I will say is the Star Beast
is. If they're a kid, they can be a cat. They're going to decide they're a cat.
Exactly.
The Star Beast is problematic because of that dialogue. Because it's not saying we're all equal. It's saying that they're more.
It's not presenting like, okay, it's fine. Present a trans character, not a problem. But you're presenting a 15-year-old trans character, which in and of itself is problematic, okay? And you're presenting in the way that they are more special than anyone else. It's very disingenuous to assert they're not trying to make kids trans. Yes, they are, because it will validate their ideology. The more trans kids there are, then clearly this is a situation which needs, this whole thing needs to be unleashed, and they need to be allowed to be more and more and more and more. And it's creating a situation where you look at the Tavistock Institute had to be closed down because they were making in-jokes about how there'll be no more gay kids anymore because they'll all be trans. Just will you think about it for a minute? You told me to educate myself, and I have. Okay, I really have. I've gone down there. The reason being because I had a very good friend of mine who used to be in my band, who in his 40s transitioned and died in his 50s because of what he had done to his body. And he was a grown ass man, and he had the button stuff done and all the rest of it. Okay, his body declined immeasurably within the space of 10 years. Putting this on children is a whole other issue. If you're expecting that kind of trauma to be inflicted on people who are minors, no.
But what I will say, as the practitioner here in education, it's funny how everybody's got an expertise on education, but they never bloody spent a whole career in it. But basically, education, if the kids are not asking the questions, it means they're not thinking about it. So education becomes more of an advocacy if what you're doing is saying this content must be presented to the kids. And as I was saying, I had no gay content presented to me as a kid. I still made my mind up. That's how it should be. That children just find their own way.
I completely agree, Brendan. I really do.
There's no rush. As I keep saying, RTD, you're not a father, you're not a teacher. I don't know why you think you've got expertise just because you go nightclubbing with some trans people. That doesn't mean you're an expert.
He's openly stated on camera. He said, get them whilst they're young.
Yes.
Why? What possible reason do you have to assert control over that dialogue and to target children specifically with this ideology?
And it's H.G. Wells 1984. Get the kids in the family unit spying on their parents and spy on behalf of the state. And if anybody's worried that we're mentioning just RTD's speech and it's too political and where's the Doctor Who? Well, here's the sci-fi element. H.G. Wells, 1984. It's actually quite early on. The kids spy on behalf of the state, and the state encourages that family unit to break up. Great control that, because surely parents have most parents are really decent and have the best intentions for their kids and will die for their kids. And suddenly RTD sounds as though he's saying, well, there's dead naming out there, and there's all these terrible things, and I'm educating because I know better. Look, there's a lot of people who really don't want their kids educated. They just want their kids to be happy. And when their kids are unhappy, then you talk to them about why are they unhappy. And if in that conversation they mention something that might indicate something else, then you go down that road and discuss it a bit further. But you don't say, this is a thing, this is a thing, this is a thing, because just let the kids find their own way.
And I just want to point out as well, because I'm seeing sort of correlations being drawn between being gay and being trans. There is no equivalence. Okay, they are two totally separate things. Being gay is something you cannot control, you cannot change.
Oh, yes.
Trans thing is not defined. There is no defined what it means or how that manifests itself. There are multiple different variations on the theme with what it is, and none of it is clearly defined at all.
Yeah.
And being a kid and being gay back in the day was a very different thing to being gay as a kid today, where the chances are more likely than not that you will be told you were born in the wrong body because you like feminine things or something. Do you see what I mean? There's a very clear, distinct difference. And why is that? It's because of this current day ideology.
Let's just, I mean, and I can see people are getting frustrated if we're going to just continue on this. Because this is, I know. Mark Jones, I'm an English teacher. I'm an ex-head of English. I've misspoke. And quite rightly, I'll be in detention next week. Of course, it's George Orwell's 1984. Oh my God, it's Orwellian. How can H.G. Wells's 1984 be Orwellian? Come on, Brendan, get your act together. So thank you, Mark Jones, for putting me in detention. Now, James Jeffers, I'll just mop up here, everybody. Your patience has been good. But it's just the relevance of all this. It's such a toxic topic.
We want to talk about Doctor Who. But we are forced to talk about these things because of the guy who's running Doctor Who. He's run his mouth off again. The whole reason why we are still talking about this, unfortunately, is because our hand has been forced. I don't want to be talking about. I don't feel comfortable about being in this position either. As a gay man myself, I don't want to be dragged into all of this constantly. But he keeps speaking for me and over me, and I won't have that.
Well, and also calling it education. It's not. I mean, I can speak about my life. That's it. Now, James Dreyfus, who we all know in Doctor Who circles, I'm trying to crank it in there.
I love you, James.
Yep. I mean, James, obviously, as you know, has kind of got on the wrong side of this. I say on the wrong side of it because, of course, contracts and Big Finish and all the rest of it. Saying, that's odd, Russell. Things seem to be just fine for LGB people, relatively speaking, around 10 to 15 years ago. What do you think changed? And did you play a part in that said change? Answers on a postcard, please. Because this is it. The culture, our society is changing and people are happy. Some people are very happy with how it's changing at speed. I just gently point out, and I do have to show tolerance, of course I do, that we may be importing cultural values that make me in danger existentially.
Absolutely.
And I think I'm politely, moderately just saying that. I am not a rabid, crazy person. And yet we'll get Space Babies plots talking about refugees as if it was like the new kind of utopia. Come on, Russell. Just if you're going to educate, be a big boy and be complex. And be
I know exactly what you're talking about, but even as a straight guy, I'm in exactly the same danger because I'm of a different faith. So it's exactly the same for me as it is for you.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I mean. It's just, it's hard to say, isn't it? But it seemed a safer space to be gay, as James Dreyfus is saying. What's happened is that LGB thing has had certain other campaigns added to it that are very different, as Lee has said.
And homophobic. I've experienced most homophobia I've experienced in over 20 odd years has been from the TQ plus, undoubtedly, more than any right-wing fanatic or any idiot like that, or any of those sort of, I've had less abuse from intrinsic far right Christian types or whatever you want to call it.
I suppose that would be me.
No,
Right.
but you're not, and that's
But I've got no problem at all with Gaydio.
exactly. But I'm not talking about regular normal. I have a great deal of respect for Christians and most other religions, but I will say that the biggest attacks that I faced when I was on Twitter before I got moved off it by Mr. Free Speech himself, Elon Musk, that it was coming from the TQ Plus. And I had screenshot after screenshot after screenshot after screenshot, and it's thousands and thousands and thousands of tweets from people who were saying the worst things you can imagine.
Yeah. Now, I'll zoom through. People are telling me their boredom threshold's getting tested. So,
sorry, guys.
I noticed this. I think a lot of people on Twitter. So you've got this whole element, of course, where I won't repeat any word I've said today. That whole debate and RTD's front line in it, and then you get this. Rhys Conley, the joy and power of enjoying Doctor Who together. Now that is, to me, is just a man dressing up. Of course, that's no issue. But then I saw this message: the world is especially divided right now. There's anger and uncertainty. It's easy to feel scared and overwhelmed. Take time to hold on to the stuff that makes you feel good and safe, which tie us together instead of pushing us apart. And as always, remember, you're not alone. And the BBC are tweeting that out and all the rest of it. And yet my issue, Lee and James, is stuff like this, that the showrunner who has all these opinions and they're not getting challenged, and he seems to feel as though he can say them, this is what he's doing to Doctor Who, and I've called it Doctored Who. The classic Doctors, he says, were just too pompous. I mean, honestly,
love projection there, much RTD.
Well, yeah, he's retconned Sutek, the Toymaker, and Davros. The show, to be honest, is turning into fan fiction. He's retconned the War Games War Chief into the Master. Moffat criticizes the classic Doctors, as we know. The Doctor character is getting diminished each episode because, let's face it, the story isn't about him, and he might solve it at the end, but the rest of the story, like The Caretaker I was watching last night, is all about couple politics. The regenerations are getting messed around with and ruined, as far as I can see. I mean, since when? I mean, it's a bit of a diva Doctor who has to, when they regenerate, blow up the blooming TARDIS. I mean, honestly, it seems to be projection by RTD, who likes to be larger than life, darling, and all the rest of it. And when I go, I'll go with a bang. So, what happened to being a modest anti-hero? Anyway, you saved my list, and I did it on one of the Sunday shows, and this is why we are questioning our showrunner, because he has pretty much changed and doctored Doctor Who. These are some of the examples I showed today, so I won't repeat them. And then we had the Maestro, who did also the pronoun stuff. I don't get this. He said, "I am them," and then the next minute, that little kid said, "That's my daddy," and it's like.
That's again the lack of consistency in their own so-called identity, issues. It's like you can't even get. I mean, even RTD, when referring to Jinx Monsoon, refer to him as him, and then they. He can't even get it right. So what chance in hell do the rest of us? And it's a man. It's as simple as that. I'm sorry, that's just why. But when you have that, it's not just the fact that the character was on screen, drag queen in a family show, whatever. But ultimately, the way he stuck that baton in his teeth and made all those sexual noises was not appropriate at all. I don't care that you have a drag queen as a villain, whatever. That makes perfect sense to me. But the way in which it was done, and this particular character being so quite revolting as an ambassador for the show, talking about how he had lost a particular prophylactic up a certain particular orifice. Is that really the kind of representation you're looking for there, Russell? I don't think so.
This is what I mean, and I'm the same on this YouTube platform. I had to moderate my language for 30 years as a teacher, as you all would expect me to, because you all paid my wages. And I find it fascinating that some people just don't moderate their language or use a filter. And when somebody's got onto the Doctor Who TV program, you do sexual stuff, you're an adult, but filter, for God's sake, filter. And then I made the mistake. I kept the Maestro Offers Confusing Sexual Identity title when actually I'm now talking about the song and dance in Doctor Who. There's always a twist at the end. Is that, I mean, you're musically, is that what, and actually, James, is that one of the worst songs you've ever heard composed? And Murray Gold must have thought, I'm trapped by this nonsense title. There's
I object to the word composed.
yeah. Through together.
It's an earworm. Thankfully, I wasn't subjecting myself to, I mean, it was so, what's the word? It was so basic. It was awful. Let's put it that way. It's just earworming and repetitive just to get it stuck in your brain. It's a musical trick. But what I object to most is that the Maestro represents the god of music. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
My god of music is David Bowie. Thank you very much. And I'll stick with that one.
Yeah. James.
Well, that's a very good choice. Mine would be Sid Barrett, who actually influenced David Bowie, but David Bowie
respect that
choice.
James, did you buy the Goblin song?
Of course I bloody didn't.
But it's Doctor Who. I mean,
no, it
isn't. Oh, Jinx! Oh, Jinx!
You think?
Oh, that was good. That was good.
So this is the point. You've got the Goblin song released at Christmas that seemed to be a centerpiece of an escape strategy by the Doctor to do a Roy Castle song and dance routine, and then you had There's Always a Twist at the end because they ran out of script, really, to just do some singing and dancing. The Eurovision
wall is all they seem to be interested in, which all this nod, wink business. It's no business being okay. Tom Baker could get away with it now and again because you can imagine him sort of talking to himself and he just happens to be looking at the camera. You know, that kind of works. But you know, as a one-off here.
And I will be truthful. You know, if I had been producer of the Tom Baker years, and I know it was hard work sometimes, I would have pushed back and said, I don't like this. Now, whether I win the argument is a different matter, but I personally, any breaking of the fourth wall, unless you call Frankie Howard, nah, you're not allowed. I mean, I know Miranda did it, but Frankie Howard's my break the fourth wall. Quite like that.
Oh, love that. Yeah.
But it was comedy. Comedy is not serious. Now, the Bigenerations, another example of Doctor Who, this hocus pocus, let's play with male dolls and dress them up or undress them. This is apparently the show nowadays.
It's fetishizing the Doctor.
And the one that is the gift that keeps giving is, of course, and I've already seen him mentioned in the thread, Davros. They've changed, you know. Isn't it funny? RTD goes to Gaydio to get the Icon Award,
whatever Gaydio is.
But he could have turned up as Fern Cotton, because the point is, Davros is as recognizable as Davros as Fern Cotton becoming the new RTD. I mean, honestly, it's just like mad. You know, Davros can walk again and is no longer disfigured. It isn't even about the wheelchair thing. Because why can't he keep his facial disfigurement then?
Because it goes to this complete canard that all disabled people are only ever represented as evil, which is completely untrue. But you can cherry pick that data to bolster your argument. But even if that were true, I mean, you still get disabled people who are good characters. But then he presents one disabled character in his new iteration of the show who is an obnoxious cow, firing rockets from a wheelchair without flying backwards 200 yards.
There'll be a miss hit one day. I mean,
she comes across as more evil than
she's gonna go into one of those disabled toilets, and one day she'll press the wrong button and she'll blow herself up. I mean, honestly, it's like
laugh, but I mean, look, you can't just undo disability. You can't just he walks now. His face is fine now. It's all good. No reason, no explanation. Just is.
However,
That's just the way it is.
However, because all us Doctor Who fans
Holy
have been
hell.
on multiple streams, and we've talked about this a lot, and I dare say if we're all in the pub now, it might come up again. But I'm not trying to just kind of, here we go, let's just mention it again. I wanted to mention it in this way. That quotation there in that speech bubble is from Doctor Who Unleashed. That Welsh lad, that Welsh kind
I
of...
can't stand him.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, if you imagine a Welsh lilt, and he said, so this is the script. Davros was depicted as a
wheelchair user.
Yeah, he was never depicted as a wheelchair user with a disfigured face. That is a hell of a reductive way of presenting Terror Nation's Genesis script.
No.
I think that they're just looking for anything to virtue signal with. That's entirely it. And what is that all about? Okay, so if you've got a disabled character in the wheelchair, think about it logically, as they never do. Without Davros being in the chair, if you want to call it a chair, that is the prototype for the Daleks. The Daleks wouldn't look like that if it wasn't for what had happened to him. The Daleks themselves are problematic. The Cybermen are now problematic. Every disfigured character.
I do have a slight theory. Perhaps Russell T Davies was like maybe forced to watch Ironside by an uncle that he didn't get on with.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because we had the Iron Giant as well, didn't we? The Cyber Giant. Remember that? The Cyber King.
No, yeah.
Oh yeah. That was one of them. Was that the one with who making it?
Yeah. No. It was that Irish actress, and she had that red dress on. And
oh yeah. I remember.
Yes, and we had the Cyber Shades.
I was getting confused with Trigger there.
I mean, what is it about Chibnall does the Cyber Lords and all that nonsense, and RTD messed around with, kind of Cyber Wobbles or Cyber Yeti, or, they look like some kind of dodgy kind of...
weren't they, or something?
Yeah, some 1970s band, honestly. And yes, you're right, James. As soon as you saw the Cyber King, and when I saw that, I thought, hold on a minute here. This is Iron Man. This is like, whoa. So yes, how to destroy a classic script. That's that. And then, of course, the famous quote, and I'll just read it and then we'll move on, because it's all been said, hasn't it, I suppose. I have problems with the wheelchair user being evil. We made the choice to bring back Davros without the facial scarring and without the wheelchair support unit.
And remove every interesting aspect of his character in the process, because that scars are a story in and of themselves. Okay, that many people have scars. Right? You remove all the things that make him interesting. As a character, it doesn't matter whether he's evil or not.
Yeah,
he's a genius for a start. Right?
And I do have, I mean, I didn't need to put photographs up or anything, but I think in our culture, we all know people like Simon Weston from the Falklands War, who got, badly burnt, bless him. And, he's still, I'm sure, still dealing with all the pain and that, and had so many operations. And I'm sure, I'm sure I've heard him in interviews. What's happened to him and the pain and the disfigurement, it's a horrible term, I know, it is now him. And he's had to basically live with this new version of himself. And to then suddenly just script this nonsense that, we're taking that away. Well, I'm sorry. And Katie Piper, acid attack. And you think, come on, I think we need to be better than this, that people do build up resilience. And actually, there's your motivation for a character as well, for Davros.
Well, look at Davros. He overcame all of that. He still continued to do his work. He managed to create these Daleks from after his accident or whatever, what the burns or whatever it was.
Yeah,
it didn't stop him doing what he had ambition to do. It drove him further. I mean, whether or not it's for good or for ill, it still shows a strength of fortitude of character, which you've undermined completely, ripped that away from him.
Now, lads and Thread, let's let's be very celebratory because, of course, Doctor Who in RTD's format is 20. And you see here that
Somehow.
Radio Times is very inclusive, the Radio Times, but as we were saying, not that inclusive.
Yeah. Where's the Ruth Doctor? Where's the War Doctor?
Yeah, where's all that? Yes. Anyway, so there you go. I've got my copy. I know James said he's read his copy, so we're all looking at it to see.
Yeah, I read it online. I didn't buy the actual magazine.
Yeah, well, it's expensive now as well. That's a ridiculous other
I
thing.
wouldn't buy it because it's crap. But
Yeah, and it
I
doesn't.
won't buy it because I don't want to give the BBC money.
And it doesn't have that much in
they're
it.
not owned by the BBC anymore. Thank
I
God.
didn't know.
Well, even though
I did not know that. I did not know that.
They
Thank
used
you.
to be, but they still.
Yeah, it's not now.
Still for them. But
So
Oh, okay, I feel less guilty about visiting their site now. Then thank you very much.
So what I was going to say was, if anyone was tempted, you know what fans are like, well, yeah, you've got the front cover, pick your choice if you get a choice, blah blah blah. But there's not much in it, and I've screenshotted, so I'll save you the need if it is a cost thing. So anyway, these are the Nuwho at 20. It was the Last Chance Saloon. He's RTD, the savior. He's been the toy maker. He's been lots of other things. He's the savior. He's the Messiah.
Can I just have a second to respond to Captain Have Fun there? F the fat roof doctor. She can't even run. Do you think William Hartnell could run?
well, that's a fair point.
The thing is, I
actually like the Roof Doctor. I disagree. I disagree with the idea of the Doctor becoming a female, as I've explained on previous streams, and I liked it at the time. But now I know more about the lore, I dislike it. But I do think she did a really good job of portraying the character.
I don't think she played the character at all, but she was still 1,000 times better than Jodie Whittaker.
She hasn't been
a very low bar.
But the truth is, she hasn't been the Doctor.
Hasn't earned it.
Yeah, count the minutes she's been on screen. I mean, she's got the advantage at the moment that she's hardly been. Do you know what I mean? You really think about it. Look at the Fugitive of the Jadoon. She's obviously a different character with the chameleon thing before then. Then you get the dramatic bit when she's the Fugitive Doctor, and then you get some holograms and other bits and bobs. She's hardly been in it. So everybody,
those characters were so completely distinct to those. So she did an amazing job of the actual acting.
But not only did they do all this for very clear reasons, but what did they do with her? Right, they undermined her anyway. Even in her second appearance, she was a hologram. But what did they do with her? They make her a stereotype with a sassy attitude and carrying a massive gun. I'm like, are you not looking at what you're doing there, Russell, or Chibnall, or whatever, whoever? Yeah, it was Chibnall.
Yeah, it was Chibnall, yeah.
But I mean, are you not looking at the optics of what you're actually doing? It was so underserving and undermined her character right from the outset by making her a stereotype, which is the very thing you people claim to be against. So it's funny how you play into it every single time.
So in the Radio Times, as I said, I'm saving you a bit of money, everybody, because this is in essence it. So he gives an interview, but it's a very brief interview. Russell T Davies on bringing back Doctor Who from Oblivion. I mean, hello. Anyway, there's, just so I'm being inclusive, there's good old Matt Smith and David Tennant. Now, this is the actual art. So it's one page. It's one page on RTD, and then you get snippets, and we'll go through them just to save you the effort. And so here's the first bit, lads. So happy birthday, Doctor. In 2005, RTD defied the crit. Oh, I tell you what, he's an icon. Oh, he's gonna get a Brendan gong. Defied the critics to bring Doctor Who back to life. Now he tells whoever it's invulnerable.
Oh, Hugh Fullerton is shill of shills.
Yeah. It's invulnerable, but it didn't always feel that way. Oh, right. So it was limping along in the wilderness years, and then Yeah, I've read stuff, and very recently, that actually RTD was in fact, didn't Stephen Moffat say it? And he said you were very lacking confidence. You were very nervous, RTD, in 2005. Now, of course, forgetting all that. I knew what I was doing. Now, this is the point, Thread and lads. See what you think. I'd loved Doctor Who all my life, and I think its return has now proved that it's invulnerable. But it didn't feel like that then. It felt very much like Last Chance at the Saloon. There was a lot at stake, and there was. But Davies found himself oddly confident, which Stephen Moffat challenges. In that build-up to transmission, I felt like we had a secret weapon, and that was Billy Piper. Everyone knew Chris Eccleston was a great actor, but knowing how good Billy was a terrific feeling, because people came to criticise, people came to mock, and people came to scorn. Well, I don't know who these people are. I remember, and I will give you truth, when I heard Billy Piper had been cast, I hadn't seen her in anything, and obviously she'd sang "Honey to the Bee," you know. And
I'd only seen her as a pop star.
Yes, and so I was a bit concerned there.
Sorry.
Yeah, I will tell the truth. I was concerned then. Clearly, when we saw her in action, you thought, fine. But in a way, in this celebration of 20 years of Nuwho, he seems to be making it a little bit more about Billy Piper, isn't he? And not Chris. Chris Eccleston was great anyway. Well, Chris Eccleston was the Doctor. Can we just go back to this?
He was a really good Doctor as well.
Yeah, but this is it. It's called Doctor Who. Doctor Who's come back. He was the Doctor. He took a risk like Patrick Troughton did. And it somehow gets lost in this discussion. That's the disappointment to me, I think. It shouldn't have been about Billy Piper.
I think it's just a personal thing between RTD and Eccleston, isn't it?
Yeah, but he should be a bigger boy because he's the man who's fighting the world. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, he wasn't born... RTD, I mean, was not born to be a leader. He's not a leader.
No, he's not.
He's been an okay writer sometimes, but most of the best stories of his run actually came from Moffat. And that, I mean, I know it was about an hour ago we were talking about it, but that Satellite 5 stuff, I really hated that. I hated that episode. It almost put me off the entire thing.
Yeah, I didn't like it. It was episode 6, I think. That one bored me, and it had a really bad CGI as well. But I didn't mind its when I say it's reprise, Ark in Space style, Never Beacon style. When you saw the Big Brother thing.
No, that's the bit I'm talking about.
All right,
yeah, Ark in Space. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, there's our discussion killed straight away because we.
Sorry.
No, that's what I mean. That's good. We disagree. I thought he got away with that, but it's classic pop culture, isn't it? I mean, it's a reference that maybe in the future people go, I don't know what that's even all about. The Weakest Link. I know it's on at the moment, but you know, it's risky.
The Android made me want to punch the television.
Yeah, I like that.
This feeds into what I said before, that Davies has embarrassment issues with Doctor Who. He didn't want to bring Doctor Who back. He wanted to bring Doctor Who back to be something other than Doctor Who. He wanted it to be Buffy, or he wanted it to be whatever the current day thing was, because he said it right there. He's projecting because people came to criticize, people covered it up, people came to mock, and people came to scorn. Did they? Because it was very successful very quickly.
Yes,
people had a bit of nostalgia for it because enough time had passed. People forgot about all the wobbly sets and all that kind of stuff. People were like, oh, what's it going to be? Because they'd seen the trailer and thought, oh, that looks actually quite good, because he had made it as removed from the perception of Doctor Who as you could possibly get.
And when it actually transmitted at that point, I don't know what waffle he's talking about. You see, he's saying people came to scorn. He'll be quoting the Sun or the Mirror or something.
Projection.
Yeah, but it's newspapers and stuff like that. I mean, but I'm sorry.
I just wandered in because I was curious.
Yeah, but the point I was going to make was that by transmission, Chris Eccleston had already landed it so well in those trailers. The trailers were so powerful. And when you saw a sneak view of the TARDIS and the effects and everything, nobody was tuning in to episode 1 ready to criticize or pour scorn on
Well,
it because we'd seen the quality.
think about it. It had been off air for 16 years. So most people who are sort of reaching that age and, you know, going out and all this kind of, not grown up with Doctor Who, so didn't really know anything about it. People like us who'd watched it would remember it because we watched it and we loved it, and so we were going to tune in anyway. But the general audience probably wouldn't have even really known what it was, or had forgotten entirely about, you know,
one of my.
I mean, I've said on this show before. I started watching because I'd seen David Tennant in Casanova, and he really entertained me. So I thought, oh, okay, so this is what he's going to do now. So I watched his first episode, and then I went back and watched the first series.
I did educate a year. I did educate a year 7 class, so 11-year-olds. I'm teaching them English, and I taught them all the usual English you'd expect. But for one lesson, just before transmission, I kind of levered it a bit into a bit of Davros and a bit of this, and I just said, I don't ask me. I managed it. I think I used target books or something, but I did do something, and I tried to show them. I said, give it a go. Have a look at episode 1. And I kind of showed them a few little, and when I say highlights, it'll have been a minute, because obviously I do take my English teaching seriously, but I did do that. And I got, it was only a few years ago, as in just now. One of those kids from that class said, you told us to watch Doctor Who. And my dad, you know, was full of joy when his kid suddenly said, I'm going to watch it. And they watched it together. We know this story very well. We've done it ourselves. And he said it was the start of what him and his dad did together. And he's just said, thanks. He said, because I wouldn't have tuned in. Even with all the trailers, he wouldn't have tuned in to the Doctor Who first episode. So I recruited one person to the cause. But no, a lot of the class, I remember the 11-year-olds the next day. Sorry, it wouldn't be the next day. When we got to Monday, they all said in the class, they were full of it. They were going, oh, we really liked it. Now, of course, I was struggling with the burping, farting bin or whatever it was, and a few things. And I knew the Autons from 1970 and 1972. And I was starting to think, oh, this isn't quite. And I remember the finish. Remember when he has basically a test tube and he throws it at a CGI effect and suddenly everything.
Oh,
yeah. And it's only years later. I didn't at the time. I felt a bit like, oh, that was a bit flat. And of course,
there was no explanation really as to why the Autons, about how the nesting consciousness appeared as a lava of plastic under the Thames or whatever. It was just trying to use Beerhead from space as a starting point, but without any of the actual detail in it.
yeah.
It's a cheap knockoff.
So
but okay, it worked. It did draw people in, but okay, that it showed you straight away how far the modern era had sort of dropped in quality of actual storytelling.
Yeah, the template was there, but at the time we were all fired up. Now, hello, Raymond Williams. Unlike Classic Who's 20th anniversary, Longleat 83, there was very little to celebrate in 20 years of New Who. Because don't you remember we had the Peter Haining book, there were Doctor Who a celebration, there was loads. The classic era had the new 5th Doctor era, which was a success. New Who's last good era was 8 years ago. I think we're hitting the 2017 killer point again, aren't we? But you're right to say that I said at the beginning of the stream, Raymond, it's Doctor Who's 62 years old. This is not a special number, but they've made it an adjunct. They've made their own little appendix. They've made their own little section. It's ownership. It's capture. It's ambush.
But if you think about it, I would say it was, you know, even 20 years ago at a stretch, half of it's been an abject failure. And this is what season 1 of this current era is, season 14. Okay, so of the New Who era, season 14 of Doctor Who in the classic era was one of the top peaks of Doctor Who. That was when it was just reaching its peak, and that peak grew up until season 17. So, I mean, it really kind of shows you the disparity between the old show and the new one. As I say new, but it doesn't hold up as well at all.
And what we look at here is in the Radio Times. Again, if you're going to buy it and you want to buy it, I'm just showing you the bits to show this is all there is. I'm going to show you Russell Davies' pick of all his stories and his era, and Stephen Moffat's, Chris Chibnall's, and Shooties. So here's Gridlock. That was a surprise. RTD picked Gridlock, the episode where Doctor and companion Martha are trapped on the planet of flying cars, and it's a favourite of Davies. There's something I love about Gridlock. I think it's the first episode where I begin to conquer the notion of working in a world of special effects. And I think it's the kind of a very strange story that only Doctor Who could have, stuck in a traffic jam for 23 years. It's also the first episode I wrote entirely in Cardiff. Okay. I quite liked some elements of Gridlock. I think we had some same-sex passengers, and I think I do remember we had the DEI was happening. We had a cat person. That person had identified as a cat and ended up in Gridlock. Was he the Irish actor who was in Father Ted?
Yeah.
Yes, Ardal O'Hanlon.
Yes, that's it. I couldn't remember his name.
Very, very funny actor. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I have no real problem with Gridlock. I wouldn't, if that's his pick, though. You think, oh well, I'd have had it as just above middle ranking.
I mean, it's probably one of the more Doctor Who-y kind of stories, but it again, you got the kind of let's just shove in the macro for shits and giggles. It could be any generic monster, really. And I just think that was a wasted opportunity. But again, I think that's more of a problem with the 45-minute format.
But just like you've mentioned with when we were talking about Rose and the Autons and the blob at the end and all the rest of it, and it's only now, really, in retrospect, you go, oh God, there were some seeds there. And Gridlock that he picks, as you can see, everybody, as Lee has said, the macro were introduced, but they were not the macro we knew, and they were misused, and it was like a cameo, but that was like a nod to keep us quiet, I suppose. And he's done that so much that you can see it's his template.
Well, it's all the let's spend 45 minutes of doing all the running around and jumping about and sonicking stuff and quirky dialogue, snappy dialogue, isn't it funny? And then look, here's a villain. Oh no, what do we do? Let's do something really fast. Okay, let's do that, and now it's resolved.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And
isn't it?
It's fun it's eye candy for 45 minutes, but it's not really that much stuff.
Isn't it? I was about to say there, Lee and James, that buying the Doctor Who magazine and all the rest of it and various interviews and Doctor Who Confidential, why is it that I know that he fancied one of the actors in one of the cars? Why is it I know that? Why is it that I know that he fancies Russell Tovey? Why is it that I know stuff about the showrunner's inclinations? It's fascinating because actually that's all just personal stuff. And yet you do know how the casting works and various things work, and actually you think, God, all this is unnecessary.
Yeah, it's a lot of it's very superfluous. It's just it's all titillation. I think there's a lot of spectacle, and it's all everything around the show has to be bigger than it really is. It was just one big hype machine, and a lot of people bought into it, and it worked for a while. But it left people sort of feeling very unsatisfied. And then once you start blowing up the universe, where do you go from there? I think they just try to rush things to kind of close you over.
It did have kittens in it. And I'm a cat person, so
well, there you are.
Yeah,
I love cats. So seeing little kids, I especially look like the Doctor Who Confidential afterwards with David Tennant before he turned into a tosspot, playing with the little kittens was awesome.
I mean, the thread are not falling for this. If I've missed anyone out, please tell me off. But Sunny Waffles, Farsight, not happy with this Gridlock story. So RTD, You don't know your audience very well. So let's look at the other showrunners. I'll go big for this one. So I'll start with Stephen Moffat. Well, of course, he went for the Time of Angels. He didn't go for Blink. So anyway, he's picking from his era. The Weeping Angels returned when he took over the series. He says the Time of Angels isn't my favorite episode or my pick for best, but it was the very first episode I worked on as showrunner, and it gave me a moment of giddy hope. Blah blah blah. So he's kind of given himself a cop out. It wasn't my best. It wasn't my best. Anyway, I'll show that one. And then you've got Chris Chibnall had to pick something he liked from his era. I mean, that, oh my God.
How'd you do that? It's like literally only the first episode.
Yeah.
Oh no, episodes 1 and 2. There you go.
So anyway, he went for Spyfall. The start of our second.
Oh no, that's his second season. That was bloody awful.
So the start of our second series was a two-parter. It was kind of James Bondy. My God, with Lenny Henry in it. It was an all-action. This is the fascinating bit. He says it was an all-action romp set in America and on another planet, and then in blah 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 blah. But he says it's one of the episodes that felt the closest to what Doctor Who has always been in my head.
What complete nonsense! No.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, whoa.
Oh, he didn't pick Rosa then. That's
The only positive thing I can say about Spyfall is that I can't remember his name, sorry, but the actor who played the Master, even though the Master was really badly written, the actor did a really good job.
I disagree. I think he would have been a good actor in playing the role of the Doctor, but as the Master, he can't play. He's too nice. The guy's too nice. And when he did
but that was the thing, because there was the deception. You didn't know he was the Master until his bloody palace was flying alongside the TARDIS.
Because he always plays the sort of nice guys, which sort of. But when he became the Master, he did. Okay, I'm not kidding. If you actually go back and look at it, and then go and look at the reveal of Missy as the Master. He delivers the line exactly the same way, and he even does the little kind of thing with his mouth, like "I'm the Master." You know, it was so camp. It was so hammy. Oh my God, I could slice that for week after week and fill my bread with the
I can see where you're coming from with that. I really can.
I'm just so tired of the Master being this kind of
I'm tired of the Master. Yeah, I'm tired of the
crazy
Master.
person.
He's been destroyed, and he can stay as a gold tooth. Nobody can afford a gold tooth, so he'll just be staying in that vault.
Melt it down.
Yeah. Kez the Drone, the Cats of Gods, because they liked the references to Gridlock. Archer Collin, didn't Gridlock end the Face of Bo arc? I mean, I loved the Face of Bo. I don't ask me why. I did. I liked it. He died at the end, I think, didn't he?
Never explained. You know, it's Captain Jack, but it's never.
Yeah, are we accepting that the Face of Bo is Captain Jack?
Well, they made it so overtly clear, but
yeah, but were they doing that on purpose? And then they were gonna.
Well, like everything else, it never gets resolved or answered. So,
shall we just Shall we just be a bit clever here and actually, in comparison to RTD, Davros is a terrible trope, and we had to change him. So we've now got the Face of Bo was Captain Jack and turns into a big head with no legs.
Doesn't say much about gay characters, then, does it? You know, your future is you're going to turn into one giant head in a jar.
It's just with a bit of vinegar.
What message are you sending? Yeah, look, Time of the Angels was. Let's put it this way: Blink was Alien. The Time of the Angels was Aliens, wasn't it? It was basically an Aliens ripoff. Spyfall. I've had an upgrade. No, you haven't.
I was about to come to that because
what happened in that? It was just...
Adrian Sherlock and Sunny Waffles both commented in chat about that. That was when I checked out. I like I say, I started watching because of Tennant, and I stayed all the way through. I went back to the 2005, and I stayed all the way through Capaldi, and even though some of it was painful, Jodie's first season, the moment I checked out was the oh, I had an upgrade line. That was when I just
He was
that
so
when I
smug.
that was when I stopped. And the only time
Yeah,
I've watched
yeah.
a new episode after that was when Brendan asked me on the show and we were reviewing Joy to the World.
And you can thank me for that. Yes.
Yeah, I was.
Well, I enjoyed the music.
I was watching the first season of hers right up until I think it was the spider thing. I might have gone one more episode, but I couldn't. I wanted to pull my own face off at that point. And then in the second season, I started with Spyfall, and I was out until The Timeless Child. I had to watch that to see what damage was going to get done, and that was it for me. And then I was forced to watch the what was it, that third and final season, the Flux. That was it.
Yeah, The Power of the Doctor.
That was painful. I mean, I think the Halloween episode was probably her best, quite honestly.
Yeah, there was the Haunting of Divorce. Yeah, the one with
on screen.
Yeah, Spyfall to me. I look. Philip Hinchcliffe and Robert Holmes did lots of pastiches and all the rest of it, and you know, touches of the Mummy, and I get that. And then I sat there thinking, I know you're doing a James Bond with meets Doctor Who, but it didn't seem right to me at all. And it was a mess, you know, the plane's about to crash. So the master says, I know something. It's a funny time to tell anyone. And with Boom, I mean,
and his TARDIS was a floating house like in bloody Wizard of Oz. I mean, really?
Yeah, I know. He's a friend of Dorothy. Boom, I found it funny. Ncuti Gatwa has been in The Giggle. He's been in The Church on Ruby Road, and he's been in 8 episodes. Forget the Doctor Light something. But actually, remember, he knows he's filmed 2 series of Doctor Who when he's asked this question. I know he could still pick an episode that hasn't been seen yet and say, you'll have to just wait. I mean, anyway, he picked
That
Boom.
would have been more clever, wouldn't it?
Yeah, he picks Boom. It's tricky. I'm yet to see my second series, so I can only speak on my first. But I think I would choose Boom. I just loved Stephen's script so much, and I felt he wrote the Doctor in such a mysterious, dark way. Right, okay.
Which he can't play. It's fine in the script, but if the actor can't carry it, you know, it's not going to work. And I didn't watch it, so I can't comment too much. But what I can pick up on was that it was a big attack on faith. But then he said you had to have faith, and then he had also admonished anyone who had faith. It just made no sense.
I almost need on a loop to be watching a lot of Doctor Who, including Nuwho, because as I said, the caretaker watch last night said a lot of things to me about Stephen Moffat that I'd overlooked or just forgotten. And the Boom episode does refer to faith, yes, and so did the caretaker. And it seems to be, this is the only thing they can talk about. Yes, the reason why Ncuti Gatwa probably picked that one is because he was controlled. He had to stand still and start acting. And suddenly he had to emote in different ways. And as me and Rachel said in one of our streams, I think when we reviewed it, and she's an actress, of course, when you force the actor to stop going large and they've got to actually project in a different way, you're challenging him. And I think I would have guessed that would be his one, because he had to be different from the Honey Babes tribe. But I didn't.
Where he had to actually act.
Well, he did cry. They sprayed some on his face.
How many people watch that going, please move your foot?
Now, review it yourself, Sean, in Middlesbrough as well. Boot would have been a
Boom, I think.
Boom, sorry, yeah. Would have been a middle episode with Matt Smith's Doctor. Boom made me wonder if his flaws were covered by Smith's exquisite portrayal. What do you reckon, Brendan and panel? Oh, yes. I mean, I'm sorry, Matt Smith. I have to say, and of course, I was watching The Caretaker last night. Capaldi, I mean, the script, the story, Capaldi's trying with every line. And Matt
cared so much about the character, and he did such an excellent portrayal of the character.
Yeah,
like even the crappiest episode with him in it was just about watchable.
But wasn't Ncuti Gatwa saying in the script that if I if I blow up, whatever, I'm going to cause some sort of singularity.
Yes.
Utter rubbish. I mean,
Yes.
did you get that when the fourth Doctor was on Skaro and put his foot on that landmine? Oh, back away! I could cause like a massive time disruption or whatever. No.
But Lee, it kind of makes me think that as soon as you get a gay doctor, they say they're special.
They're bigger than any. Yeah, I know. It's so bloody packed.
Yeah, I bruise easily, darling.
I'm a nail. I'm going to regenerate. Oh.
Yeah. Please see my short wear.
And he regenerates himself every time because, like, why give up this beautiful thing? You know.
These I'm saying clever speech marks lines of Stephen Moffat because he throws an awful lot about. They're not clever in the way that, therefore, he's just saying there's no jeopardy because the Doctor, if he is exterminated or shot or
can regenerate forever and ever and ever.
Yeah, but he's a time event, and so he can't be touched. And you think, as Lee has quite rightly said, well, he was when he was in the Exelon City, but there seemed to be panic on. Caves of Androzani weren't they bothered then that the Spectrox was making a time event?
Well, surely every time the Doctor is wounded and regenerates, I mean, that's effectively dying, so that doesn't cause any event, does it? You know,
and the Valyard and the Master trying to kill the Doctor, don't they realize, because they're genius Time Lords, they were trying to make a time event that means you honestly.
Well, every time a Time Lord dies, surely that, you know, in a horrible way, whatever, why doesn't that cause time events or whatever? It doesn't make it. Why is it just him? Nonsense. It's utter nonsense.
Now, I think I've got to do my other detention. Mr. Squinty Mint, who was actually in my detention last night, is now saying to me, I really liked The Caretaker when I rewatched it, although that was a few years ago. Generally funny in places. Look, it's classic Stephen Moffat. It's Doctor Who meets coupling. And there's a lot of the dynamics between a boyfriend and learning something new about his girlfriend, and it's all set in a school, and it's all staff room politics, and it's all that stuff. Fine, that's called a drama. But where was the Doctor Who? That's my point. The show does a dead body at the beginning, so you go, way, and then all of a sudden we have lots of couple politics, telling off the Doctor, and then he's doing some jokey caretaking, and then you do another little bit when the robot lands, and very quickly it gets dismissed like a dodgy parents' evening, and then
Don't you think it's interesting though? These, Moffat and RTD and all the rest watch Doctor Who all their lives, blah blah blah, and they understand how the format works. Yet when it comes to them writing it, we all know, right? I think generally, Doctor Who works best when it's in a serialized format.
Yeah.
But isn't it interesting when it comes to even just two-parters, they get absolutely stumped with what to do with the second part. It's like, and they somehow still make it like a 45-minute episode and resolve everything in the last 5 minutes. When you've had an entire second episode to make it more interesting, develop characters and develop situations in order to create an intelligent, witty, fun, crazy way to get out of something.
Especially when they've wasted time on... learning a bit more about the context of a companion and wasting a bit of time with staff room politics, when actually each time, I'm sorry, if I was high up in the BBC, I'd be thinking, is there any way there could be more Doctor Who Jeopardy? Is there anywhere we could have more adventure? Because if you want to go and write EastEnders or a sitcom for adults, go over there. But this is Doctor Who. As I've always said, and I know we all agree on this one, they're bored with the Doctor Who concept, so they're trying to change it into something else. It's Doctor Who.
I agree with Sonny Waffles. They aren't writing the format, though. They need to be writing 20-minute four-parters. That's when it works best. But when they try to make, 2 or 3 episodes in a row, it doesn't. They can't seem to get that format right, even though they claim to be fans of the show since they were children. Yeah. They don't seem to understand that format when they actually get to writing 2-parters, 3-parters.
Yeah. Now, what about this? Because I have to be inclusive. This is Jodie Whittaker being quoted, and I wanted to show this. So I want all the threads to tell me, and then I also obviously the panel. She says there's no right or wrong way to play Doctor Who.
Well, that proves. I mean, just the fact that she said that proves that she doesn't know what the hell she's talking about, and that she was miscast. It's lacking in self-awareness to the point of absurdity at this point. It didn't work. You didn't work. Yes, it was a gift. It should never have been gifted to you because you were totally wrong for the part. There's no wrong way to play the character. Yes, you were the one. Isn't it funny? It's the one who actually got the character the most wrong up until that point is the one saying.
Up until that point.
Yeah. You know, and then Ncuti Gatwa, it's funny because it's only when they started to subvert the character of the Doctor, do all these people get cast incorrectly, and then come out and say, "Oh, there's no wrong way of it." Well, it's funny you should say that because you've done it wrong.
So if I
provably.
if I push back on this as a chair here, because I don't know if I've made a decision yet on this one. She says there's no right or wrong way to play that character. Now, I've heard other Doctor actors say something similar. That I think Tom Baker, in one of his interviews, said the Doctor is one of those characters that you can do anything with. I'm sure I've
He
heard
hadn't read Jodie Whittaker at that point.
But so I'm asking you in the thread whether she's just doing a version of what every actor said, which is it's one of those amazing parts that you bring a lot of yourself to it. That's why they used to have character actors doing it.
That was a mistake.
But yeah, I mean, I know from the
Doctor should be like 75%. The Doctor is the Doctor is the Doctor, and then 25% the personality of the actor involved.
Well, I think it's all in the casting. You know, they told Tom Baker and Pertwee to play themselves, and you know, famously, well, I don't know who I am. You know, I'm paraphrasing, but you cast people who are eccentrics, who are wizened, who are perhaps a little older, a little wiser, and smart, very intelligent people. You know, they have gravitas to them. They have a depth of emotion, emotional intelligence, intellectual capacity, who are erudite, who are very sophisticated people, who can play the idiot at times, but they have the ability to also, you know, make you believe that they are the smartest person. Jodie just came across as a gulping, gaping idiot.
But here's Geraint Williams saying, no, Jodie's right. It's the writers that got it wrong for her, him. They. Now, if you think about it, in the TARDIS Travels YouTube interview, Stephen Moffat and RTD both agree that they're both accidentally wrote for Ncuti Honey and Babes and all them affectations. Now,
completely by chance, yeah, which shows you the way of thinking at how.
Well, it shows you another trope. You know, they're obsessed with tropes. I mean, this is another trope, right?
Stereotypes.
Because they think it's a gay Doctor. We do the Honey and Babes, or
all gay
is it because he's a black Doctor and that's how they talk? So basically, are they going for the Huggy Bear stereotype or are they going for the gay stereotype?
Yes, they are both. I mean, both things can be true at the same time. What they've done is they've unwittingly, as they have no wits whatsoever, have written both Jodie Whittaker, Chibnall in his case, and RTD and Moffat in this case, as stereotypes, whether consciously or unconsciously. The fact that they're both apparently independently came to the same conclusion that the words that he would utter are babes and honey says more about them, I think, and about their choice. The fact that they projected this onto Ncuti Gatwa. Gatwa said in an interview that he wanted to play the Doctor more traditionally, which I give kudos to him for doing and saying. You know, even though I don't much like him. But to his credit, he did actually say that. And you could see in his face that he felt like he was probably a bit too trusting of Russell T Davies and what he was doing. So, I think he should have allowed him to explore that rather than sort of, no, just play yourself, darling, and bring in all this honey and all this rubbish to the
So as we start to wrap, we should have brought a birthday cake. As we wrap this up, I want to ask the thread and yourselves this: is there something, and I'm not being cynical, is there something to celebrate in these 20 years? I mean, I know where we are now, but are there some standout stories for you? Are there some standout moments? I mean, we can't dismiss 20 years just that quickly.
Well,
So
for me, there's an entire standout season, and that's season 5. But Matt Smith's first season was absolutely fantastic from start to finish.
Yes.
I jokingly and quite rudely call it chasing Amy's crack across the universe, but I genuinely that season.
I think season 1, I don't think they ever quite reached that. I think season 4 also is a highlight.
Yeah.
Elements of season 5, especially with Matt Smith. I love Matt Smith as the Doctor. I think he's a great choice.
I found season 4 a bit over the top, to be honest.
And I can understand that. I can understand
it was quite bombastic. I mean, it was
that's the word I was looking for, bombastic.
Yeah, it was very space opera at points. But
now, drawing Jack Rabbit did say that when you have a look at Classic Who and you have an overlap between the producers and the new Doctor, and it sort of phase over one another. You know, you got the same sort of title sequence or a new title sequence that carries on from the last Doctor and so on and so forth. So you got a bit of continuity there, and it sort of eases you in. But with this era of Doctor Who, it's like every single thing is bookended and wrapped up in a nice little bow, and then goes on a completely new thing and feels totally different every time. And it's quite jarring. It doesn't quite flow for me. It feels like a totally different show. And I think this stems from that, you know, old Doctor is always about change. And I think that they've used that as a crutch to get away with doing things in their own egotistical way. And I think it jars a lot of people. That's why you get this kind of very different fandoms popping up.
But it would have been interesting. I mean, it was the 50th anniversary year, and Stephen Moffat was holding the reins. And
the 50th special was really good.
But he had to deal with he also had to deal with that moment, which is when you get to the end of 12 regenerations. And we all know
the 50th wasn't even the 50th. It was, again, celebrating their show, not the classic so much, apart from the Tom Baker.
Yeah. Apart from that, but he wasn't the 4th Doctor, was he? He was the curator.
Yeah,
couldn't even do that. I mean, I did like the bit in the TARDIS where you had each Doctor represented. I mean, that kind of
felt tacked on.
It did, but I've changed my mind about multi-Doctor stories now. You just can't do them with this number. It's ridiculous. Yeah. But what I was going to say was, you know, for every moment, like in Night of the Doctor, you had a gender fluid bit of dialogue, but I loved it. You also had the other difficulty, which is in that year, Stephen Moffat had to deal with the curveball thrown by Robert Holmes about after the end of your 12th regeneration, you're stuffed.
Yeah.
And I think the resolution is going to hurt us, because I think as sci-fi writers, all they had to do is some timey-wimey, use his own phrase, back at him.
But you see how it engineered it so he would be the one to tackle it whilst he still had the show. Do you know, it felt so, I'm going to answer this question, and he just botched it utterly.
I would have just navigated away from the answer. Just like you don't do the origins of Doctor Who, you don't do his end. And yes, you just kind of, when I say you go sideways, I don't mean parallel universes or anything, but they'd have to think of a different way of doing it, so you never see the final 12th regeneration. All this nonsense. This is when we do the fairy, you know, dust and all the rest of it. You've got the regeneration crap in the Star Beast. Remember, they blow it. Whew. I mean, this is just nonsense.
Can I just say about that regeneration energy? I was watching Shrek last night, and the bit where what's the female one? Sorry, my brain can retain this kind of information. The princess, right? When she transforms.
Yeah.
Watch that regeneration, because it is a regeneration. That's exactly where they got that idea from Shrek. Go and watch it. It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same.
Well, and that's it. And but you had an end point that you don't show. You have an origin that you don't show.
Fiona, that was it. Sorry.
Yeah. And so just do something different. Be clever. But I don't think it should be for any writer or showrunner to show the origin or the end of the Doctor. I think you just have to come up with some other way. But don't, like fairy dust, suddenly come up with this, oh, the Time Lords have thrown through some blooming, a crack in the universe. I mean, come on.
Well, we know from the Five Doctors that
crack, wasn't it?
We know from the Five Doctors you can get a new regeneration cycle. It was established when they offered that to the Master.
Yes.
Well, I don't have a problem with that. Maybe the delivery of it was a bit like, oh, come on, Deus Ex again. But
the thing is, there's just stuff. I agree. Five Doctors sowed the seed, but it's almost like saying you can have a liver transplant. Do you know what I mean? It's like saying, what are the regenerations in his box, or is it like in Amazon? You can get them nice little sets when here's a £25 worth, and you put it in a little box for somebody with a football on. I mean, what is this?
I like the looming process. I think that works for me. The idea that you get sort of reprocessed and you become a new person. But I guess you couldn't really do that with the Doctor, because then you'd have to create a totally different character with that DNA. So I don't know. So
the point is, we've had 20 years of this. Where I mean, we've heard some of the highlights, but am I wrong or am I right on the Doctor Who front? And is it looking like 89 all over again? Does it actually need to have some quiet time?
Absolutely.
I don't think they'll allow it. I think they'll just carry on with the agenda pushing. They'll keep it alive for that purpose. And I don't know, eventually maybe we'll get a good season again.
I doubt it.
A new generation of writers, like literally generation, people who are being born right now.
I want to see it go.
I want to see it go.
Yeah, I want to see it go.
I don't think it's going to happen.
Not because I want the show to die on a vine. It's because it's already dead. They've killed it. I think you celebrate in 20 years is over-egging it. I think half that number, 10 years, you've got something to celebrate perhaps. But I think ultimately what they intend to do and what we want them to do are two different things. And they know they are so desperate to control this show forever and a day that they want to drag it out to live as long, if not longer, than the original.
I think it's almost tragic what's happening now. And I didn't have this opinion over a year ago. So it's just how dramatic it's changed. But I actually think, if I wanted to use a distressing analogy, which is, when you see people, I don't know, on the news and stuff like that, and they're with the dead relative and they are trying to, do CPR. They're trying to bring life back into that person because they love them.
Yeah, do not resuscitate should be put on this,
Yeah. And that's what I mean. It's that awful moment that some of us may face, switching off the life support machine, that sort of thing. And, you love Doctor Who, just like you love your relative. Yeah, I know it's a cranky analogy, but I do think Doctor Who is maybe a corpse walking type thing.
It's an act of kindness to let it go. And I think the thing is, I think a lot of people have sadly come to this conclusion that, it is the right thing to do. Not because we hate Doctor Who. It's not because we want it to go. We've been forced into this position. We didn't want this out. We've been screaming from the rooftops for a number of years about the direction the show was going in, but we were ignored or acted like we didn't even exist. And they only ever amplified the voices of those supporting, this crazy direction it's been funneled into. So we've been sidelined and ignored, and a lot of people have just peeled away because they can see the writing on the wall. They're not going to change. It's not the show made for me. And long-term fans are just so completely disenfranchised. When you've disenfranchised your very loyal audience who've supported and financially supported, I may add, your show, and you denigrate them and ignore them or actively tell them to go away and all the rest of it, it's not a good long-term plan. But what you've got left behind are some hardcore lunatics who will just go along with anything because it's always about change and it's queer and all this kind of stuff. But ultimately, it's not sustainable. But you're dragging it out, but you're doing so much more damage over time.
But this is where, I mean, I'll change the analogy slightly. This is Doctor Who meets Weekend at Bernie's, because you know you've got the people who've captured Doctor Who dressing up the corpse with pink hair,
Lipstick on a pig.
yeah, and you know they really are doing Weekend at Bernie's. And the other analogy I used last night is we all agree that Doctor Who and sci-fi in general, but particularly Doctor Who, is such a rich seam to mine, but RTD seems to have put his drill nowhere near where the rich seam is.
Yeah, I wish he'd stop putting his drill in things. It's quite uncomfortable.
And that's what I mean. I think we're all amazed. It's like there's the bullseye, and you've hit honestly, you've missed the target completely.
It's demoralizing, and I think it's on purpose. They are trying to drive away and replace it. Talk about great replacement. I mean, we're seeing it in Doctor Who. You know, they want to engineer it in their own image because they're forever narcissists. Their egos are so overinflated they can't ever possibly be wrong, and everyone else is on the wrong side of history. But ultimately, you know, history will show. But what they're doing is so careless, and it's all because they think that they are so righteous in what they're doing. But
well, what about
it's
why
destroying the heart of the show. Doctor Who had heart. That heart and soul has been ripped out, and they're trying to engineer a new skin over this hollow husk that has no meaning. When you have someone who doesn't even believe in anything beyond the here and now, there's no afterlife, there's no hope. It's a narcissistic story, you know. It's
Weekend at Bernie's. But can I just bring in the fantastic thread? Sonny Waffles is not having a go. I'm saying it, you know me. I'm going all dramatic. But the point is, as Sonny Waffles is saying here, aren't you going to mention Heaven Sent? Now, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because Heaven Sent is one of the kind of summary ones in the Radio Times, and I love the music, the Shepherd's Boy music, and I think the editing of that, and it's amazing. 4 minutes now. After that, I still don't know quite if I like it as a rewatch. At the time, I thought this is different, and you know, Doctor Who can experiment and should.
Yeah.
I thought it might get an award for the editing of that bit. I don't know if it's worth a rewatch. I'd rather just listen to Shepherd's Boy. You know, What's the story about? He's grieving for Clara, who later on we know is alive. So again, it's like Davros is different. So you think it ruins the drama of it. I mean, again, don't have these people alive. It's don't bring Adric back, bless him. But Clara, that Face the Raven, I actually really liked Face the Raven. I thought that was one of the most.
I liked it because she died, but she didn't really.
I liked the death. It's horrible to say, isn't it? I thought that death scene, it was a brilliant, and the music, Murray Gold, and the slow motion, and to see that was total sci-fi nonsense. A raven goes into her and she's dead and she expires slowly. That was really impactful Doctor Who.
And like every other bloody Nuwho story, she's not really dead. Everybody lives somewhere or another. I'm so tired of that, and and then using classic TARDIS interior just to draw you in, and I'm just like, stop manipulating us, really. Heaven Sent. I mean, it's like the shower scene, in Dallas. It didn't really happen. It's all in a confession dial thing, and it went on for billions and billions of years because he liked the number, and. Ultimately, did it happen, or was it just an artificial thing in the Matrix? It's I don't know. I liked it initially, but the more I think about it, the more I just think it's really contrived, like a lot of new.
See, I mean, Face the Raven, I will say, because I just think that is a beautiful, not the most exciting story, but I think the death scene brings it to another level. But like you said, it's killed then in rewatch because she's still alive. Matthew Waterhouse must be going, can somebody bring Adric back, please? I don't need to die. I can live again. You brought back Ace. Can't you bring back me? I can imagine all that. But I think for me, if I had to pin down, I know sometimes I go midnight, but I think my favorite story of Nuwho overall is Stolen Earth, but it didn't deliver a second part.
Like usual.
Yeah. And Rosa and some of these political ones, the Demons of the Punjab, were listed by the Radio Times. But I have to say, my truth on that one is they were just too worthy. And like I say, with Rosa, the Doctor had no impact on Rosa. It was just the Doctor lands. It's almost like the TARDIS should have landed on the bus and just watched.
There was an Indian YouTuber who covered this story, the Demons in the Punjab, and she was absolutely livid because, again, they're presenting history as they want to perceive it, you know.
Yeah.
But she was talking about how they had ignored certain elements within that historical reality again. So everyone's saying, oh, this is so, you know, inclusive, so brilliant, so brave. It's a story that needs telling, but it's not telling you the truth. From an Indian woman's perspective, she was, I'll have to dig her name up, but she's, just type in like Indian perspective of Jims from the Punjab or something. You will find it. But listen to what she's saying and how absolutely amazed and stunned she was at how it was presented with such an inaccuracy and how skewed it was in favor of one group over another group.
Yeah.
But you again face this situation where you've got a bunch of people writing from a particular political skewed perspective and presenting it as fact without giving the audience all the facts to make up their own minds. Again,
you've got to be so careful. And John Lucarotti, I can't speak today. Lucarotti was very good at that with Aztecs and other stuff. Now, Sonny Waffles, I'm being fair here. I like to do that because Sonny Waffles mentioned Heaven Sent, so we answered. And as you say, how is that Heaven's Sent's fault? You know, because Clara lives again and all the rest of it. And it doesn't spoil her now. I understand, Sonny.
We're talking about Heaven Sent, but also we're talking about Face the Raven. You know.
Yes. Archer Colin, my favorite Nuwho is School Reunion. Now, my detention intro had a mixture of School Reunion. And it had a mixture of that with the Caretaker because it mentions Coal Hill School.
I liked School Reunion until I realized on a recent rewatch, like they were trying to imply that Sarah Jane Smith was in a relationship with the Fourth Doctor. I took exception to that, quite honestly.
Yes. I never noticed that. I
rewatch it. It's there.
Yeah.
It's there. Yeah.
Yeah, because that moment in the coffee shop where he's tinkering with the rusty K9. She wasn't just saying you left me behind, it was more. But the other thing is, Sean, I forgot Turn Left. Turn Left, I have always said I enjoyed. Turn Left, I like.
I like Turn Left. But again, that's kind of like, oh, if you don't go left and you go right, as in right wing, then you will end up in this totalitarian socialist.
Yep.
Dystopia, funnily enough. I don't know how that works.
Shock horror. Now, Archer Colin, Demons is another wasted story that partitions such a badly understood event in recent history, and the story could have helped tell that story. They are trying to go back to the old system of historical stories, but unable to actually tell the real history. And you know what? I don't want them to do history stories now because with this nonsense revisionism that we have now, Rick Storm has
joined without the revisionism. That would be great.
Yeah. Now, Rick Storm's just joined us, and he's just said, what have I missed? Oh, this has been the worst stream ever, Rick. We've just kind of waffled on. No, we've missed a little bit. A little bit.
A tiny bit.
The truth is, we've reached our 12th regeneration, Lee and James. This is the moment, and there's no cop-out. This is the moment of death, of termination, that we need to go and have a life. So thanks. I mean, the thread's been alive. It's been, I mean, I feel your pain, everybody. It's we feel it as well, which is, can we just talk about a really good Doctor Who story?
Please.
We don't want to do.
We never asked for any of this, but again, you know, here we are, forced again to talk about stuff that we don't really want to be talking about because it's so it's so insipid and utterly pointless. But again, you know, we're being manipulated constantly and being told what to think and how to be educated. Like, who wants some rich millionaire, middle class Welsh guy telling us to educate ourselves? Get in the bin, honestly, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Enough. I'm tired. We're all tired of it. We don't want to be sitting here talking about this. We want to be talking about Doctor Who.
Yeah, and Sonny Waffles is one of many who's actually trying to really help us. Deep breath. I know we could go on forever, and maybe I might need to do another show just about the New Who 20 years or something. But yeah, there's so many that yes deserve some comment, and maybe therefore I need to do something else. Sean, another Borough lad, this stream has been awesome.
Hey.
Sonny Waffles, the stream has been terrible. I think there's some irony there.
Contrarian to the law.
I can't do a detention every night. Mr. Squinty Mint, you love talking politics. It was my degree.
I love batting back because I don't like being told what to think. That's the only thing. Yeah. But I'd much rather be doing anything else because it is boring. But, you know, here we are. I'm sorry.
Here we are. So, everybody, if you didn't see the detention last night, it's when Brendan does his version of Game of Thrones. Shame, shame, shame. And I never had to use this today, lads. I mean, maybe there were slight moments when basically I said the lads I'd interrupt them if we went on too long. There's a few versions there possible. I'll use them on other panelists. I don't like that mute button. It's awful, although I do say that there. I haven't opened my season 7 yet. I'm dying to do that. But obviously, these pesky things are getting in the way. And there's my detention club. If you haven't seen it, I mean, I didn't know what to call it in the end. There's the Doctor Who detention club, and in the corner there, who cares? Which, as you know, is a word play. I do care. I do like you to know your opinions, and we had a good chat about that. But I do love the music. I talked to Lee and James about this. I could make thousands of intros. I just love finding music, and
you always select excellent music. You've got a very good taste, I have to say.
Well, thank you for that. I enjoy an excuse to do it. So I'm about to play the music I used in my detention just for our credits. But James, thanks for your time. I know you are a busy chappy with shifts and everything. And
yeah, I've got another stream tonight as well, and then I've got to be up at 4 to go back to work.
Oh my God, James!
Oh no, so sorry.
Yeah,
and
I'm not tomorrow.
Oh,
not tomorrow, the day after.
Yes, tomorrow's another day. And obviously, Lee, thanks for coming on again. You're like our special guest in a way, Bigenerates, because you're my generation, so you're breaking all the rules.
Well, I think our generation generally did. That's why I just can't sit there and just say nothing when it's
never.
It's just not my. No, it just wasn't raised that way.
Oh,
bloody minded to the last. But you know, look, you know, I don't want people to feel I'm attacking their identities or whatever. No. Do what you like, but don't tell other people what to think and what to do. That's where I take exception. Don't bring it down to, you know, the kids and all this. Let them be. 18, you can go and fight wars, you can go and, you know, cut bits off, you can do whatever you want. Just don't tell me how to live my life or speak for me. I can only speak in response to what I see.
So here we go. There you go. There's your warning. So everybody, thanks for being with us. Here we go. Goodbye. We'll be on again, but thanks for your support. Bye for now, everybody.
Bye.